Welcome to Late Night Story. When the world goes silent and shadows stretch longer, some stories awaken, whispered only to those still awake. So put on your headphones, turn down the lights, and let me guide you through the quiet hours. If you're listening alone, you're exactly where you need to be. If everyone can leave a comment to let me know where you are listening from in the world, don't forget to subscribe before you drift too far into the dark.
Of Night and Day, Chapter 17. Night, Yuki laid in bed with Saren, staring up at an unfamiliar ceiling. She turned to Saren and quietly rolled out of bed, slowly moving so as not to wake him. Silently, Yuki padded out of the bedroom and stopped dead once she reached the kitchen, finding Retzelina out near the railings of the balcony. Retzelina was wearing a simple shirt and a pair of loose-fitting and worn shorts. A light robe fluttered in the breeze, which wafted into the open balcony doors. Retzelina had her back to Yuki, facing the night sky. Yuki hoped she hadn't been discovered. She turned just as Retzelina called to her. "Even if I couldn't feel you, Yuki." Retzelina turned to Yuki as she inhaled the end of a small cigarette, blowing out a cloud of blue luminescent smoke from her nostrils. "I'd hear your clumsy footsteps in my home." Yuki sighed. "Hi, Retzelina." Retzelina turned back to look out over the balcony. "Sneaking out, are you?" Yuki walked toward the balcony, stepping out into the warm, humid air and moving to the railing. "Just wanted to look around." Retzelina gave a nod, inhaling another drag from her cigarette and exhaling more plumes of colorful light blue luminescent smoke. "Do you smoke?" Retzelina offered a pack of blue cigarettes. Yuki smiled, shaking her head. "No, bad habit to have on a spaceship." Retzelina nodded, inhaling again. "Disgusting habit, to be honest." She exhaled once more through her nostrils. "Then why do it?" Yuki asked. "Stress," Retzelina said, taking another inhale and looking upwards toward the sky. Yuki looked up toward the midnight sky as well, smiling at the familiar sight of an evening sky framed by skyscrapers. "I like to come out to my balcony and look at the stars back on day. It's relaxing." Retzelina turned to Yuki. "So, what do you love about my brother?" Yuki smiled, looking up. "He's got a very compassionate heart." Her smile weakened, "And yet it's so wounded." Retzelina nodded. "Alia really did a number on him." Yuki turned to Retzelina once more. "Oh." Retzelina nodded. "Refused to have children for the first few years. Not really something most couples do." She took another inhale. "I thought she was a little selfish, at least toward Saren. I didn't think an empathetic race could be selfish." Yuki chuckled. "Are you all connected?" "Yes, in chains." Retzelina inhaled again, now blowing the smoke out between her lips to the end of her snout in a single stream of pulsing blue smoke. Alia's chain was attached strongly to her purpose, her job. Retzelina leaned against the railings a little more as lights twinkled in the air and across the glass of the large buildings. "So she was focused on her hunting?" Yuki asked. "She was..." Retzelina extinguished her cigarette. "It consumed her. It was all she cared about. Not that it's bad to care about your profession, but..." Retzelina trailed off. Yuki laughed. "You shared that trait with her?" "I did." Retzelina nodded, turning to Yuki. "But I also don't do anything so selfish as taking a mate when I know I do not have the time to give them." "The time?" Yuki asked. Retzelina smiled. "I barely have time to see my brother when he stops by for the first time in years. Do you really think I have the time to dedicate to a mate?" "I guess not." Yuki sighed. "It's lonely at times." Retzelina stood up, stretching. "But I get respect at work, luxurious accommodations for the stressful work environment, and the knowledge that thanks to my efforts, the people at night don't go hungry and can sleep soundly." As Retzelina spoke, her smile widened, looking up toward a large building across the street from her own. Yuki smiled. "To me, I'm just looking for minerals to sell to feed my own family. I can't imagine working hard to feed others." Retzelina's smile faded. "And that, Yuki, is why Day is a primitive wasteland," she turned to her, "and why you're staying here. But can't you reconsider?" Yuki pleaded. Retzelina shook her head. No, she stated as she walked back inside. I cannot. Yuki sighed. Retzelina dash. Good night, Yuki, Retzelina said as she passed her kitchen. There's some evening tea bags in the cupboard if you need some help sleeping. Yuki heaved a sigh and took a seat on a large chair on the balcony. She looked out over the city and could hear traffic down below and the occasional shouts and noises of the large city. She closed her eyes as the white noise relaxed her. Yuki got up and returned to bed, shutting the balcony doors before she crawled back into bed with Saren. I guess that's that. I can't see Jeffrey, she frowned, cuddling up against Saren, her eyes watering. That can't be it, can it? She sighed, closing her eyes, falling into a heavy sleep. A fog-filled field greeted Yuki, and she seemed to be all alone. Out in the distance, there was a scratching noise, almost like metal scraping against metal. As Yuki moved towards it, she felt as if she were floating. A red knight sat clad in white robes, gently tinkering with a small object. He seemed very young. Saren, Yuki asked softly. The young knight turned his head to Yuki and gave her a warm smile. He's at work. Yuki frowned. The boy looked familiar. Oh, who are you? The young knight laughed and went back to his tinkering. You must not have got much sleep last night again, mother. Yuki just frowned and sat next to him. My dreams are getting troubled, it seems. The boy looked at her and frowned. It's probably due to your acclimation, from when you used to be a normal Dei Angel. The doctor told you not to worry about those weird visions. Used to be? Yuki asked, looking to the young knight. What do you mean, used to be? She reached out to touch him, but when her hand crossed her vision, she noticed it had bluish claws at the end. She examined her hand curiously, confused as to why her fingers were tipped with claws. She then looked to her wings. Blue knitting wings. She turned and found a short and slender tail behind her. Oh, my guardian. The young boy looked very concerned. I asked there's something wrong, Mom. Are you all right? Yuki went pale. W, what did you call me? She said, her mouth agape. No, it can't be possible, can it? The young boy frowned. I said, Mom, is something wrong? Should I call the doctor? And no, she gasped, no. I'm fine. She closed her eyes. Mommy's fine. The young knight placed his hand on hers. I know what you saw in your dreams is troubling you, Mother, but I promise nothing like that can happen. The Guardians would not allow it. Yuki looked at him. The Guardians? The boy nodded. And you can trust me. I'm the scribe lord, Mother, he said with a bit of pride. I'll make sure to protect us all, in the name of the Guardians. He must have gotten that pride from me. Unless he's a hunter, what's a scribe lord? The world began to fade to darkness as the fog thickened. The only thing that remained was the boy's shimmering blue eyes, her eyes. The world was plunged into complete darkness. Yuki sat up, gasping, confused, and in Saren's arms. Shoot, just a dream, my love, Saren whispered. Oh, Saren. Yuki grabbed hold of him, burying her face in his chest. I keep having dreams of my son. I have to bring him here. But how? Saren whispered. Retzelina won't allow it. Yuki grinned. There's more than one way onto a ship. Day. A heavy bass beat thumps in a dark room as a number of imps and angel men alike cheer and shout as staged with a number of chrome poles running from the stage to the ceiling. An angel woman in nothing but a thong gyrates and thrusts along the pole. Her dark wings catch the light from time to time, sending fractals of light bouncing to the humid club air as she twists, spins, and flips around the pole. In the VIP room, toward the back of the club, surrounded by a pair of strippers and several off-duty cops, Palma finished inhaling a line of powder off the table. He shouts excitedly and thumps his chest. Yeah, that's the shit, he cries as he pulls one of the girls tight against him. She winces at his tight grip. You want to come home with me, babe? Palma grins at the girl, getting especially close. She beams to him. Sure, Daddy. As long as you can keep up. She winked at him. Palma pulled several large bills marked, 100 lumens each out of his pocket, and placed in his mouth. As he leaned over the girl, she bit the bills out of his mouth and grinned up to him, stuffing them in her ample cleavage. Palma got up and let loose another scream, his heart hammering in his ears as the drugs in his system fueled his evening activities. The night continues with more lines of his new preferred drug, even sharing with his newly met lady friend. Before he knew what was happening, he was in a hotel room. Palmer and his new acquaintance both cried out in ecstasy. Sweat-drenched pairs of drugs surged through their veins, fueling frantic lovemaking. After that, Palmer blacked out and awoke staring up at the ceiling of the hotel room, his head pounding in his mouth and throat dry and his ears ringing. He rolled off the bed, stumbling to the bathroom where he finally managed to pull himself up to the sink and get a drink directly from the tap. His phone was buzzing loudly, far too loud. He took another swallow of water, leaving the tap open as he staggered his way to his jacket, which had landed somewhere on the floor of the hotel room. Palmer picked up the phone and found he missed a call. He had missed 35 calls, to be exact. The phone rang once more, and Palmer winced as he saw the number. He cleared his throat and answered as best he could, his voice cracking slightly as answered. "Why, yes, so Joy?" He managed to sputter. "By the guardian, where in oblivion have you been?" Sorjoy barked over phone. Palmer looked around the room. "That's a great question. I'm wondering that myself," Palmer thought. He didn't recognize the hotel. It wasn't cheap, sure, but he wasn't familiar with it. Busy," he stammered. "Busy," Sorjoy growled. "You work for me, Palmer. Don't forget that fact." Palmer took a deep breath and rubbed his head with his free hand. Yeah. Where the fuck are you? I need you here yesterday." Sorjoy screamed into the phone. Yeah, Palmer grumbled, getting to his feet and staggering to the bathroom to get another few gulps of water. "Don't you? Yeah, me, Palmer. I will hang you out to dry," Sorjoy threatened. Palmer grumbled to himself, finally sneering to the phone. "Sorry, sir. Daddy." The young, buxom woman cried softly from bed, her head in her hands. "Oh, guardian, I don't..." She fell to her knees and vomited. "Fuck!" Palmer grumbled as the girl unloaded her stomach contents on the floor. Palmer spotted the remains of pills in the mix of her excess. "I don't feel too good. She whimpered, tears streaming down her face as she wiped the vomit from her lips. "Palmer, where the fuck are you?" Sorjoy screamed on the phone. Palmer splashed some water on his face from the sink and cleared his throat. "What do you need, Mr. Sorjoy?" Finally, Sorjoy relented. "I need you to get an escort for the delivery of the heart of Lucifer to Mr. Truman's estate. A private company can't do that." Palmer protested. "If I wanted a private security company to do it," Sorjoy fumed, "then I wouldn't have a need for you in my back pocket. Now would I?" Palmer flinched at the volume coming from the phone. "Now be a good pet," Sorjoy growled. "And heal." The line went dead. Palmer closed his eyes tightly and gave a powerful exhale through his nostrils, trying to clear his head. "Fuck, that shit hit me hard. I gotta go to the doctor." The feeble angel kneeling before him sobbed. "I feel like my head is going to explode." Palmer walked to his clothing strewn about all over the floor and collected it. Dressing as swiftly as he could, he reached into his wallet and pulled out a few bills. "Go to the hospital, and if you talk about this, I'll find you and gut you myself." He tossed the girl several large bills. "Go get fixed up." The young woman whimpered as the bills fell to ground, a few landing in her own sick. But I think I'm dying." "Then do me a favor and do it somewhere away from me," Palmer stated, turning on his heel and rushing out of the hotel. Cleo sat at her desk, while Sorjoy paced back and forth in front of his office door. "Sir," Cleo began, "would you like me to have someone install hardwood in front of your office?" Sorjoy glared at her. "Why would I want that, Cleo?" "Because you're going to wear out the carpet with that pacing," Cleo said, jokingly. "This is no joking matter," Sorjoy hissed as he continued to pace. "Truman is expecting the gem today, and I'm not going to risk something so valuable being transported by anyone other than the police. Because they can't be corrupt." Cleo sighed, tapping away on her keyboard. Sorjoy chuckled. "When there might corrupt cops, it doesn't matter. They know not to bite the hand that feeds them." Cleo gave a nod. Sorjoy had been opening up to her lately regarding how much power he had. She was unsure why he was doing this. Posturing? To instill fear in her? Whatever his reasons, Cleo had not felt that they were affecting her in the ways that Sorjoy desired. Cleo's phone rang and she answered quickly. Eric Sorjoy's office. Chief Palmer told us to help escort the diamond. Said he would be waiting at Truman's office. We have several officers at your HQ, the officer stated. Thank you so much. Cleo turned to Sorjoy. We'll join you. Please come around back to the loading bay. We'll be leaving from there. Sorjoy turned to Cleo. Good news? Our police escorts are here, Cleo informed Sorjoy. Good. Sorjoy heaved a sigh. He made his way toward the elevator. Let's hope no one tries anything stupid. Several officers flew around the back of the large Farnsworth building, all surrounding a pair of black limousines. Nibirius cleared his throat as a few of the officers landed near him. He tipped his hat to a few of them as they approached. The second limo was in front of Nibirius's. The other driver looked far more nervous than Nibirius. One officer approached the second driver. You got clearance of this? His badge read, Officer Grant. What? The driver squeaked. ID, asshole, Officer Grant said, pushing the driver's shoulder. The driver flinched and pulled out an ID card, handing it over. I'm a professional transporter. Shit man. Officer Grant looked over his ID. Bade, Trenner? Bade nodded. Officer Grant swiped the ID through a small card reader, looking it over. Bade hemmed and hawed. Nibirius kept his eyes forward as the officers paid him no mind. Officer Grant grinned, looking to Bade. Hey, asshole, want to take a guess as to what I just found? Bade gasped. I can explain, Dash. Officer Grant punched Bade across the face, then pulled him out of the limo as another officer pounced on him, forcing him to the ground. Take him in for questioning. Bade shouted in protest as he was carted off by a pair of officers. Officer Grant chuckled. Who can drive one of these? He asked his fellow officers. A young eager to please officer volunteered and climbed into the limo. Officer Grant now moved towards Nibirius, approaching him menacingly. Nibirius pulled out a cigarette and lit it, taking a drag and blowing the smoke away from Officer Grant. Hey, you, Officer Grant said as he approached Nibirius. Yeah, Nibirius asked calmly. Mind if I bum one of those off of you? Officer Grant asked. Knock yourself out. Nibirius offered a pack of cigarettes to the officer, who took one gladly. Have you ever worked with that guy before? Officer Grant asked. Nibirius shook his head, lighting the officer's cigarette for him. Can't say I have. He's new. He was supposed to be the lead car. The armored truck is getting loaded in the loading dock. Once you boys give the okay, the big boss comes down, and we make our way to wherever it is we're going. They haven't told you yet? Officer Grant asked, taking a drag. Man, they don't tell me shit. He grinned to Officer Grant. The pair laughed. Officer Grant's radio soon squawked to life. Address en route, heading to 1000 Prestige Lane. Palmer's voice called out. Officer Grant nodded. Never heard of that address. Nibirius noted. It's a code. Officer Grant smiled. VIP estate. We gotta verify now with dispatch on a secure line. VIP. Coming in hot. An officer shouted as Cleo and Sorjoy walked out a small door to the left of the loading dock. Cleo grimaced at the uneven concrete in front of her, taking mincing steps in her heels as she moved gingerly towards the limo. She steadied herself in the back of the limo, looking to the lead car, her brow furrowing as she saw an officer sitting in the open driver's side door. Where's Bade? Cleo asked. Who is Bade? Sorjoy countered. He's the other transporter I commissioned for the lead car. Cleo explained as Nibirius assisted her towards the limousine door. Why did you commission a transporter? We have Nibirius, Sorjoy questioned. Granted, we are not tight on funds. Because, Cleo explained, the lead car is a dummy car. Sorjoy gave a slight nod of approval as he slid inside the limo. Well thought out, Ms. Walters. Nibirius leaned into the back of the limousine. Bade acted nervous around the officers, and they arrested him. For acting nervous? Sorjoy frowned. He was a fully vetted transporter. Cleo complained, I hired him myself. Nibirius shrugged. You act suspicious around some cops. They'll take you in until they find something, anything, to hold you. Sorjoy chuckled. I'm sure your transporter will be fine, assuming he's done nothing wrong. Nibirius grinned. I saw the scan, his ID checked out, and he had no priors. Cop baited him, and he fell for it. The only thing that kid is guilty of is being green. Sorjoy nodded. Well, then I am glad he's no longer working on this project. Cleo sighed. He was just a dummy car, sir. Noted, but do fire him, Cleo. Sorjoy smiled, leaning back in a limo. Yes, sir, Cleo said, tapping on her tablet. Nibirius closed the door and got into the driver's seat. Soon a pair of large armored trucks rolled out of the loading bay. The first truck passed the limousines, while the second stopped long enough to allow both limousines to travel in between. Well, I must say, Sorjoy smiled, I do feel rather safe. Cleo nodded. Outside of the limousine, 3 police officers per armored vehicle stood on top of the large trucks. As the caravan made its way down the street, the officers held onto the roof with handles and quick-release straps. The officers each carried with them heavy assault rifles. After a few minutes, a voice shouted from a side street, Cerberus comes for you. A large bottle filled with gasoline crashed against the first armored car. Nibirius spotted the flames on the first car and shouted, shit. He quickly took a right, while the front limousine took a left, each of them heading down the wrong road. Eggs pelted the windows and sides of Sorjoy's limousine. Problem? Sorjoy asked as Nibirius turned the limo. Someone just tossed an incendiary device at the lead armored car. Nibirius shifted the limousine into gear, and Cleo and Sorjoy were soon shoved into one another as the limousine picked up speed. Hang on back there, getting us out of the hot zone. Cleo yelped as Sorjoy caught her. Sorjoy looked down, realizing he was gripping Cleo's hips tightly. Mr. Sorjoy. Cleo narrowed her eyes on him. Sorjoy released her. You're welcome. He cleared his throat as he attempted to brush off the awkward grip. Outside, 3 of the police angels leaped off the top of the lead armored car and flew towards where the bottle was thrown from. Hands up! An officer shouted to one angel wearing a dog mask. The dog masked man held up his hands. Holy shit, I'm unarmed. Good. A second officer snickered, gunning the man down without any further warning. Other angels in dog masks jumped out of side streets and alleyways. The 3 officers soon opened fire, taking out another pair of angels and tagging another before they ceased fire. 3 down, 1 tagged, flagged the nearby hospitals. Anyone comes in with gunshot wounds, make sure it's reported. Officer Grant shouted, Come on, let's collect the dogs, he laughed. A radio buzzed in Nibirius' car. Disturbance has been quelled. Follow the alternate route. Sending it to you now. Nibirius took the radio up and slowed the limousine down. Got it. Cleo sighed. Well, thank the Guardian that's over. Sorjoy nodded. This is why you make sure you have cops you can trust. Palma sipped the coffee as he sat across from Bade. He was looking over a file, then glanced up at Bade as if it was the first time he had noticed him there. Oh, you need something to drink? What am I being held for? Bade swallowed hard. Palma looked back to his file and took another calm sip. You know what you're here for. Bade went pale and began to sweat. Okay, list dash. Who put you up to it? Palma said, looking at the paper still. You've got no priors, so either you're very good. Palma looked up to Bade, which is doubtful. Bade frowned. Listen, I want a lawyer. Oh, me too, man, Palma said, laying the paperwork down on the table. Me too. I bet I could get all kinds of compensation from the department from this fucking jobs. You know how many times I've been shot in the line of duty? Palma shook his head. Bade looked down at the table. A cop died today. Palma lied. What? Bade looked up, shocked. Yep, some fucking bastard in a dog mask threw a bottle filled with gas in an armored vehicle. Palma shook his head. Poor bastard was burned alive in his gear. Bade stammered, sweating even more now. What a shitty way to go. Palma shook his head. I prefer some drug dealer. Just pop me in the back of the head, myself. 1 second I'm busting some imp prick for selling drugs to kids. The next second I'm shaking hands with the Guardian Lucifer. Bade looked away. So, Bade, Palma said, finally looking at Bade. Who's your contact? Bade was silent. I was called on to the initial job with a legit contract. Low, bald, sure, But it was just to drive the dummy car and I got no experience, so I figured bite the bullet and take the shitty contract. Palmer nodded. Bade heaved a sigh. Then some guy contacts me and says he can double my pay if I just make a right down a particular road instead of a left. I'm listening and you're doing well here, you are. Palmer grinned. That's it, Bade admitted. That's it, Palmer said. Standing up, you sure? Bade nodded. Listen, if you're scared of these guys, Palmer smiled, drinking the rest of his coffee. I have to tell you, that's the wrong way of looking at things. What? Bade said, shivering. Palmer smashed the coffee mug on the table and pressed the broken porcelain against Bade's throat. You should be way more afraid of me. Bade gasped and tried to step back, but found Palmer's hand on the back of his neck. See camera? Bade said, pointing to the camera with a flashing red light in the corner. Palmer turned to it and smiled wickedly. Make a choice, Bade. Who are you more afraid of? Guys in masks who run around killing cops in the dark. Bade whimpered as Palmer pressed a jagged porcelain against his throat. Or a cop like me, Palmer whispered into his ear, who has no problems killing you right here on camera, with my face on full display. Bade began to piss himself. Make your choice, Bade. I haven't got all day, and my hand's starting to cramp. Palmer hissed with a devilish grin. Bade stammered. I don't know his name, but I know he was a co-worker of that miner who fell. That's all I know about Cerberus. I swear to the Guardian. Palmer smiled, pulling the coffee mug away from Bade's neck. Thanks for being cooperative. Palmer slammed Bade's face down onto the table with his other hand. Bade's head bounced off and he recoiled, falling back against the wall, collapsing to the floor in a heap as Palmer strode out of the room. Two officers stood there in shock. Once the door shut, Palmer burst out laughing. Holy fuck, these Cerberus guys are a joke. Palmer grinned wickedly as he looked at the closed door. I was literally just fucking with him. One officer chuckled. So were we? Palmer grinned to them. Just goes to show you boys. He walked past a pair of officers. Everyone is guilty of something. Night, I'm sorry. Retzelina frowned. You want what? Yuki beamed. I want to see the shuttle. You know before it's decommissioned. You want to see the shuttle? Retzelina lifted an eyebrow. Yes. Yuki smiled wide. Is that a problem? It's an odd favor to ask from you, all things considered. Retzelina thought out loud as she drank from a cup of hot amber-colored tea. Is it? Yuki asked. Saren smiled. She is a pilot, sister. Maybe she'd like to see how the shuttles operate. Retzelina leaned back in her chair. The shuttle does leave in a week. It's not like you're going to stow away in that time. Awesome. So that's a yes then. Yuki beamed at Retzelina. Saren joined Yuki in smiling at Retzelina. Retzelina heaved a sigh. Fine. She stood up, placing her mug down. But only because I haven't seen you in a few years, Saren. Saren grinned. Oh my. Spending time with my sister. This is a new experience. Retzelina narrowed her eyes on Saren. Don't push it, brother. Yuki smiled. Part one of the plan is coming together, she thought to herself. A few hours later, Retzelina, Saren, and Yuki landed near a large staging area. A rather large ship was taking on crates, and Nidden dragons of all sorts were walking along the fuselage, inspecting the craft. Wow! Yuki remarked, that's a big shuttle. Retzelina nodded. Yes, it is. It has to be to transport goods from night to day. Yuki wondered why she had never seen a ship like this on day. Surely she would have had to see it. Someone would have seen it, right? I don't suppose I could meet the crew, could I? Yuki asked. Retzelina shrugged. Why not? They're inspecting the ship now. They are. Yuki smiled. You actually let the flight crew inspect a ship? Who else would do it? They're the ones whose lives are on the line. Retzelina pointed out in a haughty tone. Ugh, Yuki lamented. I wish they had let us do that on day. There's a separate crew that does the maintenance. It is like that on day, Retzelina pointed out. In order to prevent the transmission of any foreign disease to the crew members, the crew quarters is on lockdown when it's docked. Really? Yuki frowned. That would explain why no one has ever seen a Nitten-piloted shuttle land on day, she thought. Honestly, the only intelligent thing I've heard a Dei Angel say over a conference call. Retzelina said, approaching the ship. Yuki's mouth hung open. Excuse me? I stand by that statement, Retzelina said as she continued towards the ship without looking back. Come on. If you want to meet the crew, they're this way. Saren sighed. I'm sorry, Yuki. Yeah. Yuki glared at Retzelina. Me too. Retzelina stood next to the large shuttle and shouted. Anyone see a lazy pilot and her buddies anywhere around here? She joked. A large female knitting dragon with brown scales and green eyes chuckled to Retzelina. Chairwoman, what on night are you doing here? Retzelina smiled and motioned for her to come down. Inspection. The brown knight jumped down from the large ship, which stood a good 10 meters off the ground. About halfway through her fall, she flapped her wings and slowed herself enough to land safely. To what do I owe this pleasure? She said, hugging Retzelina. Retzelina hugged back, chuckling. Well, Brig, it seems we got tourists. Tourists? Brigit, the large brown knight, said, turning to see Yuki and Saren approaching. She smiled. Well, hey there, little lady. Yuki smiled, for once not feeling spoken down to. Granted, Brigit was the largest female knight she had run into. Hi, Yuki said. I've seen you on the news. Brigit smiled. Yuki, right? You must be a pretty skilled little pilot to keep one of those little bubble shuttles from melting on re-entry. Yuki beamed. It wasn't as difficult as roughing it for a week in the wild. Brigit nodded. It's a miracle that you're alive. Yuki nodded back. So, mind showing me around your clunker? Brigit beamed. I'd be honored. Come on board. My name's Brigit, but please call me Brig. I'm the ship's captain. Nice to meet you, Brig. Yuki grinned. You already know my name, but Yuki Carcade. She offered her hand to shake. Brigit smiled, shaking her hand. Pleased to meet you, Yuki. Yuki headed with Brigit towards the ship. Retzelina turned to Saren. You're not interested? Saren looked over the massive ship. The less contact I have with, the better. Retzelina smiled. Want to have lunch while Yuki and Brigit talk trade? Saren smiled to Retzelina. Yes, I'd love to. Retzelina grinned back. Good. Then you can explain to me how on night you made it with this Dei Angel. Saren laughed as he shouted to Yuki. I'll catch up with you later. Yuki smiled back. Okay, love. Brigit smiled. Love? I've never heard that as a colloquial on Dei. You speak Dei? Yuki grinned. Brigit nodded. Have to? The crew that we land with are Dei Angels. Explains why you're the only one who hasn't called me a primitive. Yuki remarked. Brigit sighed. I'll apologize on their behalf. They don't understand. Dei is kind of, she sighed, further apart than night. How so? Yuki questioned. You know, when you come to a big city like this, she motioned to the city behind them, you get used to knowing lots and lots of people. Everyone's right on top of each other. This entire city was the first city ever built, you know? Wow, really? Yuki smiled. Oh, yeah. Back then, Metro Prime was just, well, a little city, but everyone worked to protect one another and build it into the center of our society that it is today. Brigit laughed. And I guess moving the city walls out is hard? Yuki noted. Rarely happens. Brigit motioned to the large buildings. But it's easier to build up than out. So that's where things went. Yuki laughed. I'd imagine. But it's different on Dei, Brigit noted. On Dei, no one had to live on top of each other. Folks could set out on their own, do their own thing, and not have to worry about some horrible giant lizard stomping them to death in their sleep. Yeah, Yuki shivered, recalling the terrible sight of poor Famo. That's not a pleasant image. Brigit shook her head. It's not. But Brigit smiled, changing the subject as they neared the rear of the ship. Because of that, I'm well aware that Dei society is just different, not primitive. It's great to hear that. Yuki smiled. Besides, my co-pilot Terabitha, Brigit leaned down to Yuki, whispering. She's got a crush on an air traffic controller named Thomas on Dei. You don't say, Yuki said, wondering if Thomas knew she was a dragon and not just another pilot. Dei, Cleo and Sorjoy's limo soon came up to a large gate with a monogram on the front of a large and ornate RT. The gate opened slowly and the limousine rolled down a long road leading towards a massive palatial manor. At the center of the driveway was a large fountain, where the drive circled around, leaving a stretch of road between the fountain and the staircase leading to the massive mansion. Cleo looked up at the huge manor from the limousine and lifted her eyebrows in surprise. Sorjoy was less impressed, clearly having seen the sight before. Once the limousine came to a stop, Nibirius moved the door and opened it, assisting Sorjoy and Cleo out of the limo. As Cleo stepped out, she craned her neck upwards to see the whole site of the massive manor. Wow! It helps to publish books on the Guardian's works, Sorjoy said, approaching the armored vehicle. A few imps and angels alike came from inside the estate and helped to unload the large crate in the back of the armored truck. Be careful with that, Sorjoy barked. It's worth more than any of your lives. Cleo stood there, clicking at her tablet, her brow furrowed. Seems 3 are dead after that attack. Good, Sorjoy sneered. Then they'll know not to fuck with us again, or they'll be out for blood. Cleo sighed. Either way, I think we'd better keep security beefed up. Sorjoy nodded. I think we'll need to hire a security advisor then. Have you considered Nibirius? Cleo suggested. Sorjoy turned to her, his eyebrow raised. Nibirius is our driver. He's a veteran transporter and bodyguard. Cleo pointed out. Let's seek someone with some more leadership experience, Sorjoy ordered. Cleo nodded. I'll have a short list for you at the end of the day. Very good, Cleo. Sorjoy praised as the heart of Lucifer was loaded onto a pallet. The wheezing voice of Truman came from the steps, the click of his cane announcing his presence before his voice had reached any of them. Very good indeed, Truman announced with a smile. I must say, Eric, I'm very surprised to see you here in person. Sorjoy smiled and approached Truman. Well, I figure it was only right for me to be here to deliver the diamond to you personally. Angels and imps grunted behind Sorjoy as they hoisted the heavy diamond onto a wheel jack and began to carefully move the item around the side door of the manor. Of course, Mr. Truman smiled warmly to Cleo and Sorjoy. Please come in. I would be a terrible host if I were not to invite you in for tea. Thank you, Mr. Truman, but that isn't necessary for the least. Cleo smiled pleasantly. Sorjoy frowned. Cleo is not polite to Reefus Dash. Truman cut Sorjoy off. On the contrary, it's often impolite to impose, and as such he smiled to Cleo. I find it no bother at all. Please do come in. Sorjoy narrowed his eyes on Cleo's back as she made her way up the steps. This is a truly phenomenal home, Mr. Truman. I'm astounded by the size and grandeur, Cleo gushed. You flatter me, Mr. Truman laughed. Inheritances, some minor intelligent business moves, and all of it for what? He laughed. So my porters and butlers can live in luxury alongside me. Cleo laughed. Some lucky butlers. At the top of the steps was a dark blue-skinned imp with orange eyes and red hair who bowed low to Mr. Truman and his guests. Welcome to Truman Manor. He looked up as he ended his bow, glancing between Sorjoy and Cleo. May I take your jackets? Truman shook his head. No, that's fine. Cleo grinned at him warmly. Afraid I don't have a jacket. The imp nodded, his smile fading a bit when he saw Cleo. Oh, this is my head butler and personal assistant, Malik. Mr. Truman smiled at Cleo and Sorjoy. A most capable man. A capable imp, Sorjoy clarified. Indeed, Mr. Truman said, smiling. Malik, if I may introduce the CEO of Farnsworth Inc., Eric Sorjoy, and his lovely assistant, Miss Cleopatra Cassandra Walters. Malik bowed again. Lovely to meet you both. Mr. Truman grinned at Malik as he came up from his bow. Looking Cleo over as Truman walked by, Mr. Sorjoy, would you come with me so we can discuss things in private? I believe Miss Cleopatra and Malik can ready our tea and handle any additional logistics in the transportation of my new diamond. Of course, sir, Sorjoy said as he walked off. When Truman and Sorjoy were out of earshot, Malik turned to Cleo. It's fairly insulting, so you know, Malik said curtly. Cleo smiled at him. Yes, invite us in for tea and then order me to help you prepare it. She grinned. Don't worry, I don't mind. Malik seemed off balance from the odd comment, but continued. I meant the hair, dye it white, and the wings. Why would that be insulting? Cleo asked. It mocks our savior, Malik answered, leading Cleo towards the kitchen. Ipswella said something about that, Cleo said in thought. But I suppose I should let you know it's natural. Malik stopped, allowing Cleo to walk past him. What? Cleo turned and smiled. It's not dye, it's natural. I was just born with a form of albinism. No pigment in my wings. She motioned her purple eyes. And a lack of pigment here, too. Malik seemed stunned, but soon caught up to her. Well, my apologies then. You're forgiven, Cleo chuckled as they made their way to the kitchen. Now, where are the tea bags? While Cleo and Malik prepared tea, Truman and Sorjoy walked towards Truman's study. It has come to my attention, Mr. Sorjoy, that the title you so desperately wish to claim has a requirement I had almost forgotten about, Mr. Truman explained. Sorjoy narrowed his eyes. Sir, I feel I've done everything that was asked of me. Of course, Mr. Truman nodded. But a great patriarch must be, well, a patriarch, and you are lacking in family. So is Hoffman, Sorjoy confirmed. It's that very change that has given me pause, Mr. Truman said as they entered the study. You see, young Sorjoy, Mr. Hoffman is getting married, has small private affairs as we speak. What? Sorjoy shouted. Indeed, Mr. Truman said. So I would encourage you to find a proper woman. Like Cleopatra? Is that what you're saying? Sorjoy asked. Heavens, no, Mr. Truman laughed. No, a good match. You're not her speed, my boy. Not, Sorjoy said confused. Her speed, sir? Truman nodded. You're too similar, too driven. A man needs a wife who would support him, not try to outdo him. I see, Sorjoy frowned. As such, I feel important for you, Sorjoy, to establish some form of relationship prior to you taking your seat, Mr. Truman announced. I'm rather busy, Mr. Truman, as you well know, Sorjoy explained. Exactly, Mr. Truman smiled. So I would suggest you take some time off and spend it in the company of a woman. What? Do I crawl the bars? Sorjoy mocked. On the contrary, Mr. Truman smiled. You call a matchmaker. He handed Sorjoy a card. Sorjoy looked at the card. On it was a simple number, with one name underneath. Mimi, of Night and Day, Chapter 18. Night. Yuki walked through the ship with Brigit, marveling at how new everything was. Wow, this thing is pretty state-of-the-art. Yuki marveled. Yeah, it's a kind of test program. Brigit smiled. They're building a much larger ship in orbit. This ship is tiny in comparison to the new one, but the idea is we get to test out all the new technology. A much larger ship, like a freighter? Yuki asked. We actually have those on my home planet, Day. My mining ship is actually just a small little bubble, but the larger freighter acts as a mothership of them, Yuki boasted. Brigit smiled and gave a nod. Yeah, kind of like that, but only way larger. But we have the goal of seeking out new star systems. Interstellar travel? Yuki gasped, shocked. Yep, they call it deep sight. Brigit smiled. Taking us Nittins to see the stars in deep space. I'd love to see that, Yuki exclaimed, assuming Saren comes with, of course. So, how are you and Saren doing, by the way? Brigit asked. We're doing really well. Actually, I love Saren very much. Yuki gushed. That's so sweet, Brigit smiled. Terabitha would love to see her crush when we get to Day on this final trip. Brigit grinned. She's determined to sneak off the ship. Is she now? Yuki grinned to herself. Yeah, but don't tell anyone, no? Brigit snickered. We'll keep it our little secret. So, listen. Yuki lowered her voice conspiratorially as she pulled Brigit aside. I've been barred from going on the actual mission with you, but, well, here's the thing. I can't just leave my old life behind. I have a son, and I need to at least say goodbye before I commit to living on Night with Saren forever. Brigit nodded her brow, furrowing. I can feel that you love your son. I'm so sorry that you've been separated from him. Brigit emphasized with Yuki's plight. Yes, thank you. Yuki heaved a heavy sigh. But listen, Yuki whispered, I need your help. Yuki said, a few tears leaking from her eyes at the thought of never seeing Jeffrey again. What can I do to help? Brigid asked her, heartbreaking for Yuki. Well, Yuki mused while allowing Brigid to feel her pain. You could help me by sneaking me on board the ship on launch day. Are you nuts? Brigid shouted. Yuki pulled her down. Sure. Brigid sighed. I can't do that. I would need to get you your own set of rations, an extra bed. I'd need to requisition additional fuel to compensate Dash. But you're the captain. You can get all that, right? Yuki interrupted. It's just one more person. Your ship can handle it. You've got 2 weeks till launch day. Yuki begged, please? I need your help, Brig. Yuki begged, more tears coming as she looked at Brig with a desperate expression. Yeah, but no one would approve it, Brigid frowned. Besides, why would I do that and risk my career? Well, you either help me get on board, or I apply for the vacant spot after I tell Chairwoman Retzelina Micho about Terabitha's plan, Yuki warned. On one hand, Yuki hated using these kinds of dirty tricks on an innocent night dragon. On the other hand, of course, if it would help Yuki get her son Jeffrey on Day, then it was worth it. Brigid hissed, damn it, she turned to Yuki. Fine, but I'm giving you the ship access codes. You need to be on the ship 12 hours before launch. I'm not checking for you, and if it's after 12 hours the ship gets sealed up, got it? I'll show you where you can safely get on board, and where to strap in. Yuki smiled. Perfect. Day. Jaffiel sat in his apartment, watching the morning news on TV, drinking his morning coffee. A knock came to the door, which came as a surprise to Jaffiel at this time of the day. He got to his feet as someone now pounded on the door. Jaffiel half shouted, I'm coming, I'm coming. You don't have a shatter the damn door. Jaffiel arrived at the door and opened it up, leaving the chain on the door. To his shock, there were several police officers standing in front of his door. Jaffiel Hinterland? One officer barked. Yes, Jaffiel asked, confused. How may I help you? The officer stepped back, making a hand signal with his 2 fingers pointing to the door. In a flash, another officer kicked it in, the chain of the door breaking. Splinters of the door rained on him as the force of the door getting bashed and knocked him to the ground. Immediately, several officers tackled the prone Jaffiel on the ground and clasped his wrists in cuffs. What the oblivion is going on? Jaffiel shouted. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit terrorism and attempted murder, the lead officer stated. Get him on his feet. He barked to the other officers. This is ridiculous. Jaffiel shouted, I haven't done anything. After his outburst, Jaffiel found himself on the receiving end of a baton to the side of the head. Jaffiel was knocked out cold. Jaffiel woke up later handcuffed to a chair in an interrogation room of some kind. Sitting across from him was Palma, sipping coffee, reading a document. He turned to Jaffiel. Oh, you're awake. That's great. Jaffiel glared at Palma. What's going on? Did you hit your head a little too hard there, kid? Palma taunted, looking around the room and shrugging. It looks like you've been arrested. Why? Jaffiel demanded. Well, mostly for funding a terrorist group that seems to have Alpha Farnsworth Inc., Palma said, smiling wickedly. Do you know anything about that kid? Jaffiel grumbled. Why would I ever? Jaffiel trailed off. Jax, you moron, what have you gotten yourself into now? He thought, heaving a deep sigh. Maybe you felt your final payout was enough? Thought you could steal the heart of Lucifer? Palma questioned, grinning all the while. Jaffiel sighed deeply and closed his eyes, knowing what he had to do for his friend. That rock went for over L2 billion. Jaffiel looked at Palma. Are you aware of what I was paid? What's that? Palma taunted, smiling. I got paid 15% on material value. Jaffiel narrowed his eyes on Palma. Material value? They weighed it and compared it to a small bag of marbles. That thing is an artifact. They valued it at 750,000 lumens. The cheap bastards only gave me L112.5K. Not a bad haul for most. Didn't you also get hazard pay? Palma pointed out. Yes, and even L225,000. They may as well have spit in my face. My commission ought to be 15% of the sale price. Jaffiel mock griped. So, what? You enlisted a small army. Palma smiled at Jophiel. I hired some protesters and paid them 1,000 lumens each, Jophiel said, attempting to mislead Palma. I just wanted to harass the CEO for ripping me off and taking my money for himself. Palma got up and walked towards Jophiel. Tell you what, seeing you be generous makes me feel generous too. How's about you give me the names of the angels you paid that little bounty to? If you work with me, maybe I can work something out for you. I don't know their names, and I didn't ask. I don't even think half of them showed up. They probably just took the money and ran. Jophiel tried to lie for his friend once more. You don't know who you gave the lumens to? It could help you out, maybe knock some time off your sentence. Palma offered. Jophiel shook his head. Like I said, I don't know any names, and I didn't ask. I gave him 1,000 lumens each. After that, I didn't speak to any of them. Well, that's kind of you, Palma mocked, pulling Jophiel's chair back slightly. Palma leaned against the table, smiling as he finished his coffee, placing the mug on the table. Not too smart, but very kind. Jophiel grumbled as his chair shifted, struggling against the cuffs which held him to it. I'm not a criminal. I'm just a disgruntled worker. Yep, a soon-to-be unemployed, indebted, and incarcerated former disgruntled worker of Farnsworth Incorporated. Palma grinned. No names, eh? Not even a face. No, Jophiel stated. In a flash, Palma hurled a punch at Jophiel's gut. Jophiel heaved as the wind was knocked out of him. I'll stop punching when I get some names, kid. Palma landed a few more punches into Jophiel's gut. Jophiel gasped, looking up to Palma, wheezing, I told you, I don't know any guardian damn names. Palma knocked Jophiel to the ground with a right hook. Palma brought his fist back to guard his face with his other fist, as if he was in a boxing match. In keeping with his aesthetic, he kept shifting his stance back and forth, grinning ear to ear. I can do this all day. Jophiel wheezed and glared up to Palma. You know, kill me or just, he grunted, keep hitting a guy who can't hit back? Jophiel spit a wad of saliva and blood at Palma's feet. Beating up a defenseless angel makes you feel like a badass, huh? Palma's smile vanished, and he placed his foot on Jophiel's throat. A smartass, huh? Jophiel was about to speak before Palma's foot pressed on his throat. No, you shut the fuck up now. Palma's smile returned. I know exactly what to do with smartass with smart mouths. Within a darkened bedroom, Mimi slowly rubbed her small hands over Mr. Truman's old and liver-spotted skin. The petite blonde angel's well-manicured hands slid between his feather-bare wings, eliciting a soft groan from the old man as she continued to massage his ancient muscles. Mr. Truman heaved a sigh as Mimi slowly dressed him after the conclusion of her session with him. As always, my dear, your hands work miracles. Mimi smiled mischievously at Mr. Truman. Anytime, babe. Mr. Truman wheezed and struggled to stand. Mimi moved to his side and helped him to his feet. There you go, sweetheart. Thank you. Mr. Truman wheezed again. We have some time before Sorejoy arrives with my delivery. Would you like to see it? Mimi winced a bit. No, love. I'm afraid I've got to get going. I've got a whole lot of planning to do. She smirked. Well, you do have one last task before you depart, Mr. Truman said, leaning on his cane as he shambled forward. Of course, love. Mimi smiled as Mr. Truman shuffled out of the room. Malik met Mr. Truman at the door and bowed to Mimi. Mimi smiled at him and walked out of the room as Mr. Truman turned toward an elevator located in the hall. Mimi's bright and cheery smile vanished and was replaced by a scowl as Mr. Truman turned his back. She walked down the hallway to the second bedroom and opened the door, flicking on the light. Morning, Kalen. Mimi greeted brightly. Inside the room, laying on a bed with several tubes in his mouth and down his throat, was a man with white wings and long white hair, about 30 years old. Machines whirred, hissed, and beeped as they assisted his breathing and fed him via a tube. Let's give you a quick checkup, sweetie, Mimi said as she walked to a small sink and pulled on a pair of latex gloves. She gingerly looked over his body, lifting him gently and turning him to check for bed sores. The entire time, Kalen remained completely comatose. Mimi finally finished changing the man's clothing and tooted as she did, Damn shame your brain dead, Kalen. She smiled at him. You are a handsome man. I wish we had more clients who looked like you. She dropped his clothing into a laundry basket and turned to flick the lights off. When she got outside of the room, she saw Mr. Truman and Malik waiting down in the lobby. Perfect, Mimi smiled, pulling out her phone and dialing a number. After a few rings, someone answered on the other end. Everything is ready, a man's voice said on the other end. Slight change of plans. Mimi smiled at the phone. Apparently Mr. Truman is expecting a delivery today. Night. Yuki landed back home with Saren, downright giddy. Saren was less excited. I don't like hiding this from Reza. Listen, I won't be gone long. Just enough time to bring my son back. Yuki explained as she walked inside the house. Saren's brow was furrowed. I understand, but Dash. Oh, Saren. Yuki turned to him and hugged him tight. How about this? Let's spend as much time together as possible in the next couple of weeks. Show me everything Night has to offer. That would make it seem like you are going away forever, Saren sighed. Yuki beamed up at Saren. It's just us spending as much time together before my trip. I suppose, Saren thought out loud, Dr. Terasuki wouldn't mind a short sabbatical. There you go, Yuki exclaimed. So, Yuki smiled, tracing her hand over Saren's broad chest. What do you want to do? Saren smiled. Have you ever seen a hunt? Yuki's eyebrow lifted as her face fell. You want to take me on a hunt? With who? Yuki circled high in the air while holding Saren's hand. Below them was a large field filled with all manner of bronzy grazing down below. Saren smiled at Yuki, shouting over the wind. So, first the carrier surveys the area then. He signals to the hunter to give the go-ahead. Yuki laughed. What's the signal? Also, how does the huntress hear Dash? Yuki's questions were interrupted by a deafening and oddly familiar roar. From the forest, the Bronzy started to rush out. Yuki's eyes went wide as the herd of Bronzy started to stampede away from the tree line. Despite their massive size, twice that of any night dragon Yuki had seen, they moved with surprising speed. As they ran, the nearby trees shook. Yuki spotted Lazlo flying from one of the treetops, soaring only 2 meters over the thunderous Bronzy. At first, Lazlo kept pace with the Bronzy herd, but slowly moved further and further down the herd's ranks. Finally, Lazlo came upon the last Bronzy, running slower than the rest. Lazlo's claws opened wide as she dove down. She landed on the back of the slow Bronzy. Her back claws dug into the thick skin of the massive Bronzy. With some maneuvering, she grabbed the creature's large right horn and swung down under its neck. While Lazlo attacked the Bronzy, Fezzik flew overhead, keeping a watchful eye on her. With effort, Lazlo managed to position her foot on the creature's nose horn and sliced at the side of the creature's neck. The Bronzy threw its head back. Its hard bony had frill-pinning Lazlo under it. She was unfazed, smiling up to Fezzik, who quickly swooped in front of the creature, scratching at its face, causing it to release Lazlo. Lazlo leaped into the air as the Bronzy attempted to swing its horns at Fezzik, who flew out of reach of the old bull. The Bronzy's fight stopped shortly afterward, not having the strength to run as blood gushed from its throat. The Bronzy slumped forward, its neck snapping under its own weight as it collapsed in a heap on the ground. Yuki smiled, different style than Tassel. Saren nodded. Tassel is, well, she shares Alia's gifts. Yuki and Saren landed near the pair as Fezzik skinned and gutted the large Bronzy. Yuki walked up to Lazlo. I thought you were in trouble for a moment. Lazlo smiled. It's risky. The Bronzy is really well armored. The thing to remember is that there's plenty of room to live under that skull plate. Yuki nodded. Well, you seem to be all right. Well, luckily I have someone watching my back. Lazlo grinned back looking at Fezzik. Yuki smiled. I kind of never got to thank you guys for, well, saving my life. Fezzik grinned to Yuki. Hey, happy to save you from the wilderness, and welcome to the wilderness. Yuki laughed at Fezzik's joke. If you're squeamish, you might want to look away. Lazlo grinned. Fezzik does the gutting. Fezzik nodded, cracking his claws. Time to call it in too. Can't carry all this by myself. Lazlo smiled and moved to a knapsack that Fezzik had placed on the ground. While Lazlo dug through the knapsack, Fezzik began to skin and gut the animal. causing Yuki to stand back in the sight of the creature being disemboweled. Saren smiled. They leave most of the organ meat for the scavengers and other predators to clean up. Chain of life. Fezzik grunted with effort as his claws sliced through the sinew and tendons to release skin and meat from a creature. As he slipped cuts of meat from the large animal, he had several bags prepared. I'm glad Saren reached out to us. Lazarus pulled a long-range radio out of the bag. Hunting party Tamala down to Big Kill, requesting pickup, sending coordinates. Yuki frowned. Why is that? Verifying coordinates. Dispatching a transport to you shortly. Another voice chirped over the radio. Lazarus smiled at Yuki. Because this is my last hunt for a while, she sighed, her claws gently rubbing over her stomach. Fezzik laughed. Yep, she's got egg laying to focus on in the next few days. I didn't know you two were expecting. Yuki beamed. Congratulations, Saren added. Lazarus grinned. Thanks. Girl or boy? Yuki asked. Saren shook his head. I doubt they'll tell you before the announcement party. The what? Yuki lifted an eyebrow, confusion crossing her face. Lazarus grinned. It's the party we throw to reveal what sex we choose for the child. Wait, you choose what sex the child is? Yuki asked, shocked. How? Fezzik grunted. Night can decide if we want a boy or a girl based on how warm we keep the eggs. He laughed, sealing another large slab of meat into a bag as Lazarus moved to help move full bags off the side and spread some fresh bags open for him. Fezzik stood up, cleaning off his claws with a rag. You two should come. Lazarus turned to Fezzik, narrowing her eyes. Fez? What? Fezzik smiled. What's two more people? Well, Lazarus slowly calmed herself. You should discuss this with me first, Fezzik. It's not like they're going to watch you lay the egg, Fezzik sighed. Just got to make sure we don't let the egg sit too long, so we can get back to hunting. Lazarus' eyes narrowed. Is that a dig? Fezzik jumped up, startled. What? No. Haha. Fezzik went back to carving up the bronzy. Yuki turned to Saren. What am I missing? Saren grinned. I'm guessing Lazarus a late hatch? Lazarus huffed. Yes. My father kept me too cold in my egg. Took me a year to hatch. A year? Yuki shouted. Everyone stared at Yuki oddly as she shouted. Sorry. Yuki cleared her throat. Why so long? If you keep an egg too cold, trying for a girl, it can take a full year. Sometimes almost 14 months in some cases. Lazarus explained. Some say that the longer you keep the hatchling in the egg, the stronger it will be. Fezzik shook his head. A myth, Saren sighed. It can be detrimental to the hatchling's health in reality. Lazarus' radio chirped. Scavenger spotted half a click east from you. Decoy protocol. Fezzik turned to Yuki and Saren. You two should get out of here. Fezzik began to cut at the animal's neck. Lazarus nodded to Fezzik and rushed to help him cut at the massive animal's neck. Wait, what are they doing? Yuki shouted. As Saren grabbed Yuki's hand, they both took off to the air. And isn't that the thing that killed Alia? Wait. Saren turned to Yuki, confused. How do you know what happened to Alia? Yuki flinched. Marika showed me, she explained sheepishly. What did she show you? Saren asked. Everything, Yuki confessed. How the scavengers showed up out of nowhere, and how Alia attacked it just as quickly. Yuki looked to Lazarus and Fezzik with concern. We have to get them out of there. Don't worry, Saren grumbled. Lazarus and Fezzik are not foolish enough to attack it, Saren said with anger and frustration tinging his voice. Once the pair pulled the head off the bronzy, both carried the head about 20 meters from the body of the animal. Next, both of them rushed to the organs and pushed them onto a large tarp, dragging the organs to the head, setting the organs behind it. Fezzik and Lazarus then dragged large sheets of the scaly hide and covered the organ meat and neck. Once they were done, both returned the remaining carcass, cutting what they could from the body. Lazarus and Fezzik now worked at incredible speed to strip the carcass of meat, sealing the meat into large bags as quickly as they could. When a bone or other useless cut of meat was freed, they would run it to the pile they had set up where the scavenger was coming from. After a few moments, Yuki spotted the massive creature. It was smaller than the one that Yuki saw in the vision Marika showed her, but still, the animal was massive. The ground shook with each of its footfalls, its strange short feathers shifting as it moved towards the head of the Bronzy. Lazarus and Fezzik both kept their eyes on the scavenger as it sniffed the air, smelling the blood. They were both ready to leap into the air at a moment's notice. The scavenger leaned down over the bronzy head, sniffing at it and giving the head a nudge with its snout, causing the head to tilt over on the ground. The scavenger made a clicking noise before it crouched down, biting down on the hide and tugging at it. The moment the organs were exposed, the animal let out another chirping growl, and now moved to the pile of discarded bronzy parts, taking bites out of the organ meat, gnawing and gnashing at the soft flesh. Lazarus and Fezzik now continued to strip the carcass of the bronzy, each keeping a wary eye on the beast. Yuki frowned. Wait, why is it attacking them? Scavengers are dangerous if provoked or if a hunting party hasn't begun to clean the kill, Saren explained. However, the hunting party is already in the process. Well, Saren motioned to the large creature. The scavenger gets a free meal, he pointed to Lazarus and Fezzik, and we can keep the kill. As Yuki witnessed the symbiotic relationship, she had a burning question on her mind. Why would Allie attack one? Pride, Saren said curtly. His eyes narrowed on the scavenger below. Yuki was taken aback by the anger surging through Saren at the revelation. It wasn't until this moment that Yuki fully understood the nature of Alia's death. Not only was it avoidable, but Alia also seemed to rush towards it by overestimating herself, and she died by her own actions. Yuki turned to Saren, mourning for his loss, and in turn, Saren turned to her, forcing a smile at her. It's in the past, and not your fault, Saren explained. But despite this, Yuki could not help but feel a tinge of guilt. Was she doing the same thing? Was she rushing off to Dei for no good reason? Was it avoidable? Yuki now called into question whether or not it was worth it to take the final shuttle to Dei after all. Soon a transport ship, not unlike the ambulances, landed near Lazarus and Fezzik. A team began to load the stored bags of meat inside, a few Knitting Dragons rushing out to assist in finishing up cleaning the carcass. After what seemed like mere minutes, the team had stripped the bronzy down to nothing but bones and sinew. Lazarus and Fezzik took to the air, and the large ship began to lift off just as the scavenger had finished off the vast majority of the organ meat in the pile. It lumbered to its feet, now fully gorged, and slowly wobbled its way away from the site of the kill. Never a dull moment, right? Lazarus laughed. Fezzik grinned wide to the pair. I see you got to be lazy, Saren teased. Fezzik laughed. I will never turn down an assist, especially when it's a big bronzy or any size longer Virtus. Yuki frowned. Those giants? You kill those two. Fezzik nodded. Usually takes 2 teams to down a longer Virtus. Bronzy is easier. Saren grinned. So, when is the announcement party? Lazarus rolled her eyes. Next week, she looked to Yuki. Will she have something proper to wear? Saren beamed to Yuki. Oh yes, I almost forgot. Forgot what? Yuki asked Saren. Yuki had flown for some time from the site of the hunt, back to the city of Cairo. As she followed Saren's path through the air, she noticed the street was familiar. Oh, Saren, Yuki shouted. Where are you taking me? You'll see, Saren smiled, heading towards a small shop. Yuki looked up to see that this was a tailor that she had first visited when Saren took her around town. Why are we at the tailor's? Yuki questioned. Saren grinned warmly to her. My mate, you will see. As they walked inside, a small bell rang, and the gray-scaled tailor, Baron, soon greeted the pair. Ah, the Angel girl and her friend. Baron laughed happily. I hoped you had not forgotten your order. Saren smiled. Thanks for holding it. I knew you'd be happy to handle this. Handle what? Yuki asked. Baron took a step back. She talks? Yuki gave an exasperated look to Baron. Yes, she talks. Saren interrupted. Sorry, Baron. This is Yuki Carcade. He beamed. Yuki, this is Baron. Nice to meet you. Yuki sighed, offered her hand to shake. Baron's tail wrapped around Yuki's hand in a greeting. Well, it's very nice to meet you too, he grinned, looking at Saren. So is she ready to try it on? Try what on? Yuki asked. Saren grinned, his cheeks darkening as he was unable to hold back the surprise. Your dress? My what? Yuki asked, surprised. Baron walked into back. Follow me, please. Yuki turned to Saren, who only gave her an affirmative nod. Baron soon pulled a white plastic garment bag from a hook and turned to Yuki, grinning wide to her. I hope you like it. Yuki took it, finding the bag oddly heavy. She unzipped it, and her eyes went wide at what she saw. Inside was a golden dress. Yuki's fingers ran over the fabric, shocked to see real gold threads were laced within the dress itself. Care to try it on? Baron asked. Yuki gave a nod, shocked as she moved to a changing room. Once inside the changing room, she stripped her underwear and slipped into the stunning gown. Yuki was shocked at how well it fit, and as she slowly pulled the zipper up, gasped as the dress hugged her curves tightly. Yuki hadn't had a dress so well tailored to her body before, and the quality was unmatched to anything she had seen before. The image that greeted her in the mirror was that of a shimmering yellow angel, the gold complementing her blonde hair and yellow wings. The dress came down to her ankles and did not touch the floor. It did have sleeves that wrapped up along her arms, leaving her back open to allow her wings to spread out behind her unencumbered. A soft knock came from the door, finally breaking the reverence that Yuki's own reflection had trapped her in. Miss? Baron asked. Yeah, sorry. Yuki turned from the mirror, doing her best to pry her eyes away from the stunning sight of the glimmering golden dress within. Baron smiled wide as Yuki stepped out. Ah, perfect. I knew the fit would be superb. He looked her over, admiring the dress on her, while checking for imperfections. Yuki blushed and smiled up at Baron. Thanks, but I can't possibly afford this. Afford it? Baron turned his head to her oddly. Oh, I almost forgot a little bit to help with the height difference. Height difference? Yuki asked. I must say, this was more of a challenge, Baron said, approaching Yuki. You see, most knights don't wear shoes for anything other than work. Those are normally heavy boots and protective gear, but your feet, far more delicate. Yuki was surprised when Baron produced a pair of shoes with surprising platform on the bottom, though the heel was not much taller than the platform itself. You made me platform shoes? They too glittered with gold and laced with gems. Baron grinned. Yes? Do you like them? I had to find references in old texts from Dei society. How does every dragon on Night know about Dei, but not a single Dei knows about Night? This can't be possible, can it? Yuki considered this while she slipped into the odd footwear. Yuki found that, as she stepped into the shoes, she was at least 10 centimeters taller. Not a big increase in height, but it did make her feel ever so slightly less dwarfed. After a few tentative steps, Yuki felt more secure in walking. Yuki looked at Baron. Can you make me shoes that aren't platforms too? Like just normal shoes? Baron smiled at her. I would be honored if you'd allow me to perfect the craft. Making shoes was an interesting test of my skills. Yuki smiled. Well, great. I guess I should show my mate, right? Baron's smile weakened. Mate? Saren? He's my mate, Yuki explained. Baron's mood shifted visibly, and Yuki could sense a feeling of disgust come over him. Yuki frowned at him as this happened, and she walked toward Saren. My apologies, Baron said. It seems unnatural to me. I'm sure you don't feel the same way. I don't. Yuki explained, but smiled once she felt the joy and a hint of arousal spring from Saren as he spotted her. Oh! Saren grinned. That's better than I expected. Baron exited behind Yuki, carrying her street clothing in a bag. Looking at Saren. Yes, I did my best, as you can see. You did amazing, Baron. Saren smiled, turning to Baron, his excited smile weakening. Something wrong? Baron heaved a sigh. As much as I would enjoy continuing to fabricate clothing, while I wish you both happiness, I cannot really agree with your life choices. He turned to Saren. An apprentice of mine has begun his own trade shop across town. Perhaps you can get any further needs from him? Yuki glared at him. What? Just because I love Saren Dash. I disagree with your coupling. All the same. Baron frowned at them. The Guardians place an immeasurable distance between night and day for a reason. Saren took Yuki's hand. Well, Baron, I'm sorry you feel that way. I thank you for your efforts. Baron nodded, offering the bag of Yuki's clothing to her. You're welcome to change if you'd like. You can take your damn dress back if dash. Yuki began before Saren gave her a tug on her arm. We'll be leaving, Baron. I wish you'd reconsider. Saren took the bag of clothing and the pair left. And please, Baron said as the pair left, do not tell anyone who made your dress. Yuki was glaring daggers at Baron as he shut the door behind them. Why did you stop me from chewing him out? Yuki shouted. Because it wouldn't accomplish anything, Saren frowned. You could feel him, couldn't you? He didn't want us to leave, but he is, Saren sighed, disturbed by our relationship. Yuki turned to the small shop, watching as Baron walked behind the counter again. I guess, if he's disturbed by it, then even me loving you in his presence is something that is bothersome to him. Saren shook his head. It's a shame. He's the best tailor in town. Yuki looked down at her dress. Yeah, it's beautiful. You're beautiful in it, Saren smiled. Come on, let's get home and you can change. Day. A few weeks after his arrest, Jaffiel remained in a prison awaiting trial. Jaffiel sat meditating in the center of a small cell. There was a single window at the peak of the room, and Jaffiel heaved a heavy sigh. Eventually, the door opened and a guard stood, looking down at Jaffiel. The guard frowned, turning to a fellow guard. Dude's in the same place we left him. Well, he's got a visitor. Another voice explained from behind the wall. Get him up. The guard nodded. On your feet, you got a visitor. Jaffiel slowly got to his feet, holding his hands out and opening his eyes. While I am out, will I be fed? It's been 2 days. Quit pressing your luck, the guard growled, pulling Jaffiel out. The only reason we're even letting you see another person is because the visitor has got connections. Well, Jaffiel nodded, offering his hands. Let's go then. The guard cuffed Jaffiel and led him down a hallway to a small room. Inside was a small table and a door on either side. Windows were on each side of the room, allowing guards to look inside. Sitting there, calmly and checking her phone, was Mimi. The beautiful blonde Angel looked bored, as if she had been waiting for some time. She wore long blue satin gloves, as well as a matching flowing evening dress. It was clear that she had someplace important to be, and that place's dress code was incredibly upscale. Jaffiel looked at her oddly as he sat down. His hands and wrists were locked to the table, and both guards stood on either side of Jaffiel, stunned by the beautiful Angel who, for reasons he couldn't imagine, was visiting him. Was this some kind of trick? Convincing him to talk to a stunning woman rather than the crass Palma? Jaffiel had been stuck in solitary confinement for what he had guessed was a few weeks. His last meal was served only 2 days ago, and while he tried to make it last, he knew it was all part of some kind of torment to get him to crack. Even Jaffiel was unsure how long he could last under this treatment, despite his meditation and calm demeanor. Hi, Joe, Mimi said with a smile. She lit a cigarette and inhaled it slowly through her long black cigarette holder. Ma'am, there's no smoking in here, one guard explained. Uncuff him. Mimi's green eyes moved the guard from behind the stream of smoke coming off her cigarette. Leave us. Before the other guard could say anything, the second one grabbed him by the shoulder and shook his head. He quickly undid Jaffiel's cuffs before the pair left the room. The door to the room soon locked and Mimi heaved a heavy sigh. Why'd you go and do that, man? Jaffiel frowned at her. Pardon? Mimi looked at him, exasperated. You got nothing to do with those Cerberus terrorists and I damn well know it. Jaffiel looked away, clearing his throat. I don't know anything about them. I just gave them money. Mimi chuckled. You give a call girl cash and she'll barely stay the night. You think they believe you about that whole, I paid 40 guys 1,000 lumens and accidentally started a terrorist organization? Do I know you? Jaffiel narrowed his eyes on her. Mimi, she said, reaching over the table to shake his hand. Pleased to finally meet you, Joe. Are you a lawyer or something? Jaffiel asked, as he gently shook her satin-clad hand. Something like that, Mimi said, pulling a small scroll from her hair, sliding it to Jaffiel. I am the law as far as you're concerned. Jaffiel looked at the parchment, unfurling it slowly. Read it, then eat it. Mimi smiled innocently. Dear Jaffiel, your assistance was appreciated, but unnecessary. Your associate is safe, despite that associate's best efforts. Your efforts, however, have now been noticed by Mistar. Sadly, your capture has called your future usefulness into question. Asterisk. So the question posed to you now is, will you become guilty of the crimes you lied about after you've suffered the punishment for them? What have you got to lose? If you know the answer is nothing, merely express your willingness to join the Hounds of Cerberus, and you will find yourself on the right side of history. Sincerely, Persephone. Jophiel looked over the scroll a few times, then slipped it into his mouth, chewing it, feeling the parchment dissolving. How would I accept, he asked. You'd tell me, obviously. Mimi smiled as she got to her feet, clad in elegant stockings and expensive heels. I want to accept your help, Jophiel explained. But who exactly are you? Jophiel inquired. Oh, my dear boy. Mimi stood, pulling another drag from her cigarette. Turning to leave, you should know better than to ask that by now. She gave Jophiel a sly grin. For now, just call me Mimi. Of Night and Day, Chapter 19. Night. The 2 weeks passed faster than Yuki had expected. The final evening before Yuki planned to leave was the night of the announcement party. As they prepared for the party, Yuki was surprised to see Saren had polished his scales to a high sheen. His shining scales made him stand out in a rather spectacular way. Saren was dressed in a style in which Yuki had not seen him before. Tight leather shirt over his bare chest, a pair of form-fitting tan leggings, and a pair of glinting silver rings sat on his horns. Wow! Yuki exclaimed as she glanced at the mirror before her, applying lip gloss, as well as some eyeshadow and eyeliner she had managed to create with Dr. Terasuki. She was missing mascara, but it was the best she could do with what she was given. She applied the brown and gold glitter-filled eyeshadow slowly, finding it worked well as long as she was careful. Yuki's wings were much easier. Dr. Terasuki had helped her get a feather cleaning compound and conditioner that not only helped clean her feathers, but also made them shine. Saren walked up behind her and placed several chains of silver and gold jewels around her neck. There were so many that Yuki felt her neck pull down for a moment as Saren fastened them around her neck. Yuki noticed that the lengths of the chains went down to her exposed bosom. Do you have any more necklaces? Yuki joked. Well, the rest of the jewelry that Alia had is for horns and her arms, Saren said as he motioned to her beautiful backless golden gown sleeves. And I think this is enough shimmer for your arm. I guess dragons really like shiny objects, huh? Yuki smiled up to Saren. You are my shining angel. So I would have to say yes, Saren laughed, leaning down and kissing Yuki softly. Oh, Saren. Yuki exclaimed as he kissed her softly. Come on, Saren beamed. We don't want to be too late. The pair flew across the city to wind up at Lazulf and Fezzik's home. Several other knights had already arrived, including Marika, Tassel, and Getter. Yuki spotted all of them easily, as Marika was wearing copious amounts of jewelry. Tassel wore far less, but still more than Yuki would normally wear. Getter wore an outfit similar to Saren. Getter wore a set of glimmering bracelets on his wrists rather than anything on his horns. Marika and Tassel wore silver dresses, each set with different gems here and there, woven within the fabric at key portions of their bodies. Their horns each had jewelry draped between them, and their tails had several gold and silver rings. Getter was the first to notice Yuki and Saren. Ah, I didn't know you knew Laz and Fez. Saren grinned and gave Getter a hug as they landed. We got a last-minute invite, thanks to Fezzik. Marika laughed. I bet Laz was thrilled about that. Tassel waved to Yuki. Wow, Yuki, you look amazing. Who made your dress? Yuki smirked. Baron, he's the best tailor in all of Cairo. Saren frowned. Yuki dash, I'm not going to hide from Baron. Yuki said, I think everyone should appreciate all of his traits. Tassel nodded. Yeah, he did great. Yes, he did. Yuki smiled to herself as the group walked inside. Inside, there were decorations of silver and gold all over the room. There was a large table of hors d'oeuvres which many Nitin dragons were chatting around. There were several large animal heads mounted on the walls. Yuki noticed one was of a particularly fearsome-looking bronzy. Lazulf laughed as Marika walked in. Marika, you made it, you stone-cold killer. She walked to her and gave her a firm hug. Marika hugged back tighter, giving Lazulf a powerful squeeze herself. What's wrong, Laz? Did laying that egg take too much out of you? Marika teased as Lazarus winced. The two seemed to be working to hug each other as tightly as possible before Lazarus relented. All right, she laughed. Come on in. Fez is minding the egg. Lazarus turned to Saren, smiling. Hey, you guys made it too. Welcome. She looked at Yuki. You're getting quite the tour of our society, aren't ya? Yuki laughed. Well, that's the idea. I really want to see how this announcement party works. Oh no, I meant all the jewelry. Lazarus laughed. Chains which were draped between her own horns shifted and caught the light as she did so. Oh yeah, sorry. Yuki blushed. Lazarus looked Yuki over. That's a really nice dress. Who made it for you? Baron, Yuki boasted. He has a shop on the other side of town. Lazarus smiled. I've heard of him. Our local tailor around here, Racklin, studied under him. I've heard great things about Baron. Racklin? Oh, I will have to go Racklin for any other clothing. Actually, Yuki pointed out, that's what Baron informed us. Oh no, is Baron closing shop? Lazarus frowned. I know the old-timer's been at it for a while, but, well, what else is there to do when you're that old? He could die, Yuki thought to herself, but smiled. No, he just didn't want to make any other clothing for an angel, which is fine. Racklin's been very kind to us. Oh, really? Lazarus lifted an eyebrow to Yuki. I'm surprised the old-timer feels that way. That's a shame. Lazarus shook her head. Just so you know, Yuki, I don't agree with his beliefs. I'd hope not, Yuki beamed. Anyone who can rough it for 2 weeks and kill a Ripper, she's a badass angel in my book. Lazarus gave Yuki a thumbs up. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to meet with some other guests. So why don't you make yourselves at home? Lazarus chirped to Yuki and Saren before she left the two and greeted more guests. Saren sighed once Lazarus was out of earshot. Well done, Yuki. I thought so, Yuki grinned. Saren shook his head. Oh, Saren, Yuki grinned. It's fine. Let's find Fez. Saren nodded. Yes, that sounded like a good idea. In the main living room was a small altar of sorts. Sitting there at the center was a nest made of silver and gold, but with soft and matted golden fabric inside. Fezzik was chatting with a man in white robes. The robes were etched with simple blue fabric, and unlike the other dragons, he wore very little jewelry on him. One of the few pieces he did wear was a silver chain around his neck. Attached to the chain was a set of 3 interlocking iron circles. In his brown claws was a book. His green eyes turned to Yuki and Saren in surprise. Ah! The robed knight grinned. A child of our guardian's favorite son, Lucifer. Yuki stopped, confused. You know about their religion? Fezzik laughed. Well, he is a priest. Our religions are the same, the priest said as he straightened himself up, approaching Yuki, his tail reaching out to her. As Yuki offered her hand, his tail wrapped around it. She noticed the tip of his tail was cut off, with an iron end cap replacing the tip, making it flat. Is that an injury? She asked. Ah, no. The priest laughed. Part of our traditions is the removal of the tail tip. It symbolizes sacrificing a part of oneself to serve the guardians. Yuki nodded. That's a pretty intense commitment. Indeed. It is not to be taken lightly, he smiled. I'm Scribe Nezelhatter. A pleasure to meet you, child of Lucifer. Yuki Carcade, Yuki said, smiling. Carcade, Scribe Nezel thought. A Dei title, yet you're mates with this young knight? Saren Misho, Saren smiled, walking to Scribe Nezel, the pair's tails intertwining. Yes, she is Scribe. Scribe Nezel nodded. Will you take her family name, as is Nin tradition, Saren Misho? Saren frowned. Well, we hadn't discussed it, you know, since our circumstances are special, Yuki explained. Scribe Nezel smiled at them. That you are extremely special. Excited, Fez? Saren offered. Very nervous about being a father, he rested his hand on the small egg. I envy you, Saren admitted. Yuki frowned. I wish I could have a child with Saren. Scribe Nezel smiled broadly. Who says you cannot? Biology, Yuki laughed. It is prophesied that if a union between a night dragon and a special Dei Angel would ever occur, that the fruit of such a union could save all. Scribe Nezel smiled. Needless to say, I will be keeping you in my prayers. Yuki lifted an eyebrow at him. Thank you. No, Yuki. Scribe Nezel smiled at her in awe, his green eyes looking deep into hers. Thank the Guardians. Scribe Nezel clapped his hands. If everyone can gather around. All of the party members soon joined in the living room, all taking seats in large folding chairs set up for all of them. We are happily gathered here today to witness the choice that the honored huntress Lazlo Tamala and esteemed carrier Fezzik Tamala have made regarding the future of the newest addition to our community. Scribe Nezel announced happily. The birth of new life into our beautiful world is a testament to the Guardian's many forms. For now, this egg is but a spirit. He placed his hand on the egg. And soon this spirit will become a child, he grinned to Fezzik. And sooner than many will know, that child will be a parent, thus embodying our guardians of the Holy Spirit, cherished child, and most holy father. Yuki sat back, enjoying the interpretation of faith. It was similar to Dei's, outside the number of deities. And, like all things, Scribe Nezel motioned to the circle around his neck, back to the spirit once more. As we are born, so we return as it began. Lazarus soon joined the pair at the altar. So, we now join in the revelry of our most honored community members, as they tell us the future path their child shall walk. In the light of the Guardians, Scribe Nezel instructed. Lazarus smiled at Fezzik. You're sure? Fezzik smiled. Yes. Then, I hope our son will be as strong, noble, Lazarus beamed, and goofy as his father. There was laughter through the crowd. Fezzik grinned. I hope so, too. The room erupted in clapping as the party seemed to kick into gear from there, with many drinks and much food being served before Fezzik carried a small egg and nested into another room, vanishing for the rest of the night. Scribe Nezel mingled to the crowd, finding Yuki once more. Did you enjoy the ceremony? Yes, it was lovely. Yuki smiled at him. Have you seen such a ceremony before? Scribe Nezel smiled down at her. I can't say I have, Yuki admitted. Birth's a little messier for Dei Angels. Yes, Scribe Nezel agreed. You carry your child with you until the time of birth. A very harrowing experience, from what I've read. Yuki thought back to giving birth to Jeffrey and sighed, missing him all the more. Intense, yes. It clearly creates a strong bond between mother and child. Scribe Nezel placed his hand on Yuki's shoulder, sensing her longing for her son. I'm sorry for your pain. I'm not used to so many people sensing how I feel, Yuki admitted, blushing. There is no shame in loving one's child or mourning their absence, Scribe Nezel agreed. And though you may not be used to it yet, I'm sure you'll see that the emotions of those around you will become indistinguishable from your own over time. Isn't that a lack of individuality? Yuki asked. Scribe Nezel gave Yuki a grin. That is a very Dei concept, individual liberty. You'll find the Nidden Dragons focus far more on the community than the individual. But despite that, you do not cease being an individual just because you now also feel the emotions of your community. Yuki forced a smile. I suppose. Issues you'll need to wrestle with if you intend to stay on night, Scribe Nezel explained. Yuki's smile faded. What? Scribe Nezel leaned down. We scribes are a bit more empathic than the average knight. My dear, I can sense your desire to return to your son, and it is a powerful force. Indeed. He beamed. I know little can stop you from going to your son on Dei, but I would remind you that the love of your life, Saren, is here before you now. So whatever choice you make, it will break your heart one way or the other. Yuki sighed as she turned to spot Saren laughing with Lazarus. Upon seeing her look at him, Saren gave her a warm, glowing smile and lifted a glass of bubbly yellow liquor in a delicate flute glass. Yuki smiled warmly back to him, feeling the joy and fun he was having. Had she ever had this much fun on Dei? She thought to herself. I don't mean to make your decision harder, Scribe Nezel continued. Just trying to give you a fresh perspective. Thank you, Yuki said as she turned to the scribe. But I know what I'm going to do. Scribe Nezel bowed slightly to Yuki. Then, child of Lucifer, I bid you a safe journey. Thank you, Yuki answered nervously as she turned from him. I wish you the best of luck, Scribe Nezel warned. Be careful not to anger any guardians. After an evening of drinking, eating, and celebrating, Yuki and Saren had returned home and promptly fell asleep. Well, Saren had fallen asleep. Yuki, however, was still wide awake, her mind racing from the day's events. Yuki lay with Saren that evening, cuddled close to him in bed. She sighed heavily as she pressed against him. Saren shifted slightly in bed, pulling Yuki closer to him possessively. Yuki closed her eyes, doing her best to sleep. Her stomach was in knots about tomorrow's plan. Tomorrow her plan would go into action. Yuki just hoped that Brigid would make good on her promise. The next day, Yuki held on tightly to Saren as they flew through the air. Why am I carrying you? Saren forced a smile. Yuki heaved a heavy sigh. It's how we met. So you wanted it to be how we depart? Saren sighed. Yuki laid her head on his shoulder as Saren made the long trip through the air, flying to Metro Prime. Saren had been prepared for the trip, as he suspected that Retzelina might be looking for them to be using some form of public transportation. Even so, after hours of gliding, Saren was exhausted by the time they arrived at the shuttle. Saren landed and nearly collapsed as he did so. Oh, Saren, Yuki cried, hugging him. I told you to take a break if it was too much for you. Saren hugged her tightly. I'll be fine. I wouldn't have done it if I couldn't take it. Though in Saren's mind, he was unsure if he could take it. He'd be paying for the strain he placed on his body later. That much he knew. Why put yourself through all this pain? Yuki exclaimed as she felt a seed of doubt in her mind grow at that moment. What if this is a mistake? What if I can't get back tonight? She looked at Saren's pained face. I want to be with him forever, but why am I putting distance between us? Saren smiled up to her. Because I want to be a father. Oh, Saren, Yuki cried, tears leaking from her eyes. I am putting myself through this pain because I want to be a father, Saren explained, smiling to her. Yuki laughed. Oh, Saren, she whispered as she kissed him softly. Saren now got to his feet and hugged Yuki tightly. Be safe, and bring your son to his new home, he whispered. Come back to me, my Yuki, Saren said softly as tears ran down his cheeks and snout. I will. Yuki smiled through her tears, hugging Saren tightly. I promise I will. With that, Saren reluctantly let go of Yuki as she ran towards the cargo bay. Yuki typed in the access code that Brigid had provided her, and with that, the doors opened. Yuki did her best to quietly close the doors and move through the dark cargo bay towards the crew quarters. Brigid opened the door from the cargo area to the crew quarters. Her eyes narrowed on Yuki. I thought I felt you in here. She looked around. Come on. I have the cameras off, and there's only so much time before launch control starts to question why that is. Yuki nodded. Were you able to get enough rations? Brigid nodded. I've got plenty, not to mention the food we're transporting, but we shouldn't need to dig into that. You're not that big, Brigid laughed. Good. Yuki followed Brigid as she made her way through the crew quarters. Yuki passed a series of beds, each with restraints to keep crew members in their sleeping positions throughout their rest in zero gravity. Yuki smiled, having missed sleeping in zero gravity. In here, Brigid opened a small door and motioned to a seat with a sturdy harness. You've got no suit, just a heads up. If we depressurize, you don't have much of a chance to survive. Yuki rolled her eyes. Unless you're wearing a suit the entire mission, that's a moot point. Besides, it's not like we can get rescued in a timely manner if that happens. Pseudo 2 would run out long before that. Brigid sighed heavily. I hate that you're right, but it's still nice to think of it as a lifeline. Yuki felt Brigid's concern. Sorry, I know this is a dangerous business, but I always felt like keeping a realistic look was better than blind optimism. Well, try to be a little more optimistic, okay? Brigid sighed. And don't leave this room. There are no cameras in here, as normally there is no crew. So you're going to be chilling out in here, alone, for several hours. Yuki gave a nod. I suggest you take a nap. Brigid shook her head. It's going to be a long night. Almost 12 hours later, Retzelina stood in her command center, looking over multiple monitors as technicians spread throughout the room gave readings and went over numbers. Chairwoman, the final metrics before launch. An aide handed Retzelina a digital tablet. Retzelina looked over the numbers, an eyebrow peaked. Do we have an open channel to the captain? Yes, Madam Chairwoman. The aide said. Put her through, Retzelina ordered as she examined the information before her. Brigitte's face soon flashed on a screen. She was strapped into a seat with two other female knights, all wearing protective flight suits. Hey, Reza. Brigitte greeted Retzelina as the video screen appeared. Is everything in order over there? Retzelina asked. Yes, we are good to go. Brigitte grinned. Captain, Retzelina began officially, I see we loaded the ship with more fuel than needed, as well as additional rations. Why is that? Precaution, Brigitte reasoned. Oh, Retzelina asked, curiously. I had a bad feeling, Brigitte explained. Just wanted to be safe. Retzelina gave another nod. That is why you're the captain. Brigitte gave a thumbs up to Retzelina. Well, let's get this terrible experiment over with, Retzelina sighed. At least we'll get the final shipment of materials needed for deep sight. The room was silent, hanging on Retzelina's next words. The launch preparations are underway. Transferring launch authority to you, Captain, Retzelina announced. Thank you, Chairwoman, Brigitte smiled. All systems nominal. Pre-flight checks are completed. The launch is a go. Beginning countdown. While Brigitte and the two other knights were prepping the launch, Yuki finally saw a notification appear on a screen in front of her. Yuki quickly checked her restraints and ensured her own flight suit was prepared. Luckily, the tailor, Racklin, was happy to fashion a new suit out of her ruined old one, and Yuki had managed to salvage her old helmet from her bubble ship. Yuki smiled, feeling the adrenaline rush as she saw the countdown shift from 1 minute down to 30 seconds. Yuki prepared her breathing techniques for the inevitable G-forces of launch, her favorite part of space travel. T-minus 30 seconds, Brigitte announced. Retzelina stood watching the monitors, checking side monitors for any warning signs or error messages. T-minus 10, 9, 8. Brigitte began her countdown. Retzelina crossed her hands behind her back, her tail wrapping around her leg nervously. Despite never having lost a ship or suffered any kind of accident during a launch, it was always a concern for Retzelina, something always in the back of her mind. 2-1, Brigitte announced as she promptly launched the ship. Yuki found she was thrust into the back of her seat and, to her shock, found she was moving forward, not the direction she expected. Exit velocity fast approaching, ramp in 5. Brigitte announced. Ram! Yuki shouted to no one, only hearing the announcements from the ship's PA system. Prepare for extreme G-force. Brigitte announced. Retzelina watched on a screen as the ship barreled down a massive track, its speed increasing as magnetic rails propelled the ship faster and faster as it neared the end of the track, which had a ramp which shot upwards, eventually moving from a 180-degree angle to a 90-degree angle. Engine check. Clear. Point of no return in 10 seconds, Brigitte warned. Retzelina turned to a technician. How is the engine? Ready to fire, the technician advised. 5 seconds to the point of no return. Engines firing. Brigitte shouted into the radio. Yuki felt another burst of speed thrusting her forward as the entire ship began to shake and shudder. Engines are engaged. Brigitte shouted, her breathing labored. Retzelina clenched her jaw and wrung her hands behind her back as the ship blasted up the massive ramp. Engine temps nominal. Current speed at 60%, Brigitte announced, pushing the engines to full power. Yuki was doing her best to keep the air in her lungs, doing all of her launch breathing she had trained for. Did she just say full power asterisk? Asterisk. Retzelina watched as the engines now blasted a massive plume of fire and smoke as it reached halfway up the large track. The bottom of the track had fallen away, allowing the plume to blast downward into a designated channel. Brigitte clenched her jaw as the ship shook and rattled as it left the track and blasted upwards into the air. A technician near Retzelina called out into her headset, which was broadcast the entire room. Engine output nominal, trajectory stable. Shuttle Goodwill has successfully launched. Retzelina's tail unwrapped from her leg, and she finally let the breath she was holding in her chest out. Thank Guardians, she sighed in relief. The room erupted in celebratory cheering and clapping. Be safe out there, Shuttle Goodwill, Retzelina instructed. Brigid kept her breathing firm and steady until, finally, the shuttle left the atmosphere. That we will, Brigid said happily, adrenaline still pumping through her veins as she unbuckled herself from the restraints. Launch engines cooling, interplanetary engines on warm-up cycle. Isilla, a black and green speckled scale knitting woman, confirmed to Brigid. Her green eyes examined the console before her. Navigation systems online, plotting our slingshot around the moon. A blue scale knitting female, Terabitha announced. Brigid walked to the communications console, cutting comms to emergency contact only for diagnostic purposes. We'll reach back once we completed our slingshot. With that, Brigid flipped a switch which turned the communications panel red. Isola frowned at Brigid. Captain, why are we on emergency-only comms? Is something wrong with the array? Diagnostics, Brigid said, turned to Isola and Terabitha. Remember how I said we might have a guest? Terabitha smiled happily. Wait, the Angel girl is here. If she survived the launch, Isola's green eyes growing concerned. She's a skilled pilot. I'm sure she can survive a simple launch, Brigid said, rolling her eyes as she floated away from the cockpit and headed toward the back of the ship, where Yuki was tucked away in an emergency seating area. Once Brigid got to the doorway, she unlocked it, opening it slowly. Yuki? You alive? Yuki had already unstrapped herself and was smiling wide. Yes? Oh, that was amazing. Good. Brigid smiled. Because Terabitha has so many questions to you about Dei Angels. Brigid rolled her eyes. Yuki blushed. I'm an open book. At the end of the day, Retzelina finally found herself exhausted. Why are they on emergency comms only? Retzelina asked the technician. Brigid willingly put the ship onto it once they went into orbit. She said she was doing so for diagnostic purposes. A young technician informed Retzelina, I've been making sure everything is okay since. We're just not going to see the live video feed, or anything. Retzelina nodded. Very well. If there's an issue with the ship, make sure they stop at deep sight for repairs before their slingshot maneuver. I will. Chairwoman Michaud, the technician smiled. You should get home. We'll call you if there's an issue. Retzelina nodded. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you all for your hard work on the final mission. The crew bid Retzelina a good evening as she flew back to her apartment. As she landed on the balcony and unlocked her door, she considered ordering in. As she walked into her apartment and flicked on the lights, she was met with an odd sight of Saren snoring on her couch. Saren? Retzelina asked as she walked over to him. What are you doing? Saren continued to snore soundly on the couch. Retzelina narrowed her eyes and gave him a firm shove, knocking him to the ground. Oof! Saren grunted as he hit the floor. Ooh, I rolled off the couch. Because I pushed you. Retzelina walked around the couch to where Saren was laying on the floor. What are you doing here? Resting, Saren said, stating the obvious. Retzelina exhaled through her nostrils, exasperated. That's when a thought struck her. Saren, where is Yuki? That depends, Saren countered. Did the shuttle launch yet? Saren, Retzelina roared. Where's Yuki? Saren groaned. She's on the ship. Retzelina inhaled through her nostrils, a low growl rumbling in her throat. You're in big trouble, mister. I know. Saren forced a smile, tears leaking from his eyes as he did so. But it's what you wanted. Oh! Retzelina sighed, kneeling next to Saren and cradling him in her arms. Saren. Dei. Sorejoy stood in his office, a headset blinking on his head. Nothing from the terrorists yet? Halma's voice rang in his ear from the earpiece. Not yet. I smell bullshit personally. He gave it all up too easy. Bastard is protecting someone. What about the other miner? Sorejoy asked. Guy skipped the country with his payout. Took it in cash. Not a clue where he is. Halma admitted. If you suspect this, what was his name? Sorejoy asked. Jaffiel Hinterland. Halma answered. Right. Sorejoy sighed. If you suspect this Jaffiel to be feeding you false information, don't you think the other miner is likely involved in some way? Could be, Palma thought out loud, or it could be someone else, such as, Sorejoy asked. I don't want to say who, Palma informed, but I have a feeling that we might have someone on the inside working against us. Sorejoy looked out his window down to the city below. Have you been keeping tabs on the old bird, Truman? I have. Not a whole lot of movement from him. There's a small wedding for Hoffman he seemed interested in. Otherwise, he's literally been staring at the diamond all night and day. To be honest, Palma confessed, it's creepy. I thought he was dead a few times. We should be so lucky, Sorejoy said as his red phone began to ring. What an oblivion. Problem? Palma asked. I'll call you back, Sorejoy said as he reached the phone. It was on its third ring, and upon reaching its fourth ring, he answered, removing his headset. Sorejoy speaking. Galler's voice crackled over the line. Mr. Sorejoy? Yes, there's been a development, he stuttered, for taps now loudly striking a desk could be audibly heard. A new development? Sorejoy asked, his voice growing concerned. Why, yes. You see, Galler stuttered. Galler, Sorejoy spoke calmly. Settle yourself. Sorry. Galler cleared his throat. It's just, Chairwoman Michaud, she's livid. Personally, I can't really blame her. What has her so ruffled? Sorejoy huffed. Well, Galler sighed heavily, for sets of 4 taps now struck his desk loudly. Yuki Carcade? She stowed away on board the final shuttle. Sorejoy felt the blood drain from his face and sat down, the pit of his stomach dropping. Oh, yes, Galler explained. I know there's a mountain of paperwork for us to complete, and it's completely inconvenienced everyone involved, including her new mate. Sorejoy ran his hand over his face and through his hair. When will the shuttle arrive? Sorejoy asked as he calmed himself. It's at least 3 months from you, Mr. Sorejoy, Galler explained. Sadly, the captain is already en route, and changing course now would mean a complete refueling of the shuttle and a scrub of the mission. Then scrub the mission, Sorejoy ordered. Mr. Sorejoy? Retzelina's authoritative voice chimed in. Sorejoy flinched. Chairwoman, I dash. While I understand that Mrs. Carcade has utterly agitated this entire situation, might I remind you, sir, that your return shipment is required for our own endeavors? Retzelina countered. Chairwoman, if I may dash, Sorejoy tried to interject. The materials we exchange are not done so without reason. We are counting on those materials to be delivered to our station for construction efforts, Retzelina stated. Yes, Chairwoman, I understand that. But Dash, Sorejoy was cut off once more. So, I will not be canceling an entire mission just because of one stowaway, Retzelina snapped. Now, if you feel you truly do not want Mrs. Carcade to return, feel free to return her with the rest of your materials. Madam Chairwoman, if I could just get a word in edgewise Dash, Sorejoy was cut off once more. However, if you wish to keep her, with the rest of our excess, feel free as well. This is merely a courtesy call, Retzelina warned. The ball, or in this case Mrs. Carcade, is in your court. Madam Chairwoman, aren't you being a little harsh? Mr. Sorejoy may wish to dash. Galler's words were cut off as the line went dead. Sorejoy slammed the phone down on his desk and placed his head in his hands. Carcade, Sorejoy growled. Sorejoy's hands now ran through his hair. He tugged at it slightly, growling to himself. With a sudden motion, he slammed his hands onto his desk and hurled everything off of it, glaring out the window. Guardian damn you, Carcade! After his outburst, Sorejoy stormed to his office door, slamming it open with such force that Cleo nearly jumped out her seat. Cleo, Sorejoy barked. Yes, Mr. Sorejoy? Cleo gasped, shocked at his outburst. Get someone to clean up my office, Sorejoy barked, moving to the elevator. I'm going on a personal trip where you are not needed. Cleo rolled her violet eyes, getting to her feet, her tablet under her arm as she hurried after him. Sadly, Mr. Sorejoy, you pay me to be needed. I do not need you for everything, Sorejoy glared. And how are you going on your personal trip? Cleo asked, taking a cab? Sorejoy's lip quivered as Cleo tapped on her tablet, a phone ringing through the speaker. Sorejoy lifted an eyebrow as Naberius's deep voice soon resonated from the tablet. This is Nab, he said shortly. Naberius, it's Cleopatra. Mr. Swordjoy requires transportation immediately, Cleo ordered. En route in 5, Nibirius said before the line went dead. Swordjoy looked to Cleo as the elevator slowly descended the tower. His eyes lingered for a moment over her lovely form. She was incredibly beautiful, but her attitude to him was so very off-putting. Yet Swordjoy's mind raced as he tried to think of some way to avoid using Truman's suggested methodology. Swordjoy had already contacted Palma about the enigmatic Mimi. She ran the entire escort business in Sur City, and probably for the larger territory. If someone of his stature needed an escort, whether for the night or for the long term, she was the go-to for the rich, the famous, and the infamous alike. He was unsure what Truman and Mimi had in store for him, and the longer he worked alongside the beautiful and intelligent Cleopatra, the more he found himself wondering if Truman was right about the two of them being incompatible. "I suppose I should thank you for your diligence," Swordjoy said. "You pay me for that diligence, sir." "No need to thank me," Cleo advised, tapping on her tablet, "but your praise is appreciated." Swordjoy looked at the floor numbers displayed inside the elevator, as they appeared to be moving especially slowly. "Perhaps, as a reward, I could invite you to a private dinner." Cleo stopped tapping, turning to Swordjoy. "Excuse me, sir. I'm just saying, for going above and beyond, I should thank you." Swordjoy turned to her, looking into her violet eyes. Cleo looked back, giving him a suspicious look. "Sir, it's highly inappropriate for me to accept a gift of such nature from you in exchange for my services." Swordjoy turned from her. "Then maybe you can accept it not as a gift." "I don't dash," Cleo was cut off. "I'm asking you out to dinner, privately," Swordjoy said, "outside of work." Cleo inhaled sharply and was silent as her mind raced. Swordjoy took a deep breath. "If you're not dash..." "Sir, that is not necessary. My pay is more than enough," Cleo said as the doors opened. "What?" Swordjoy asked, shocked. "Did she just reject me?" Cleo took a step out of the elevator, remaining silent. "I'm not good for him. I'm too broken, and he'd never accept me if he knew the truth. Palma would brag about having me first, and that alone would sour Swordjoy's opinion of me. Not to mention, I'm sure Palma would blab about me being an escort for Mimi," she thought to herself. Swordjoy frowned. "You can't just turn me down like that." "Sir, I do not wish to discuss it further," Cleo said, moving to the lobby. "Your transportation is waiting." "Well, this is not going to be an awkward limo ride." Swordjoy thought to himself sarcastically as he followed Cleo through the lobby. His eyes were drawn to her curvy rear, and once he caught himself, he turned away from her. "Excellent. Now that she's forbidden fruit, I just want her all the more." Cleo slipped into the limousine, moving as far as possible from Swordjoy's normal seat and tapping on her tablet once more. Swordjoy slid into the limo, unsure of how to handle the now increasingly awkward situation. As Swordjoy slipped inside, a small envelope was waiting on the seat. Swordjoy looked at the envelope and saw it had no postmark, only one name scribbled in barely legible letters on the front. "Ms. Walters." Cleo turned to Swordjoy after a few moments. "Sir, where are we heading?" Swordjoy looked at Cleo. "Did you have an envelope on you, Cleo?" "An envelope?" Cleo lifted a well-sculpted eyebrow. "No." Swordjoy flipped open the envelope and pulled out a letter inside. "Dear Cleopatra, your employer has secrets he is hiding from you. If you wish to know these secrets, then please respond to us. Our Oedipus phone will find you one way or another. Sincerely, Cerberus." Swordjoy looked up to Cleopatra. "What is the meaning of this?" Cleo's face twisted into a confused and distressed grimace. "Mr. Swordjoy, you know more about whatever is in that letter than I do." Swordjoy handed Cleo the letter. "Explain this, Cleo." Cleo picked up the letter and read it slowly. Her eyes slowly grew wide as she looked up to Swordjoy. "Mr. Swordjoy, I swear I know nothing of this, nor do I know anyone named Cerberus." "Oh, they seem interested in you," Swordjoy accused. "They may want to try to use me to get to you, but I promise you that I would never do so." Cleo defended. "So you would have told me about this letter if you had read it without my knowledge?" Swordjoy demanded. Cleo narrowed her eyes on him. "Yes, sir, I would. as this letter is evidence of whatever the Cerberus is up to. Swordjoy reached out for the letter. Give it here. Cleo did so without resistance. Sir, I promise you, I have no clue how or why such a letter will be addressed to me. I am telling you the guardian honest truth. Swordjoy looked the letter over some more, giving Cleo the occasional sidelong glance. Cleo shifted in her seat, now wondering if she should have accepted the dinner invitation just to build up more good graces with Swordjoy. Now she feared she would wind up losing her job because of a letter she had nothing to do with. Sir, Cleo took a deep breath, her knuckles white while grabbing at her tablet. Please believe me, I have nothing to do with this letter. Swordjoy folded the letter and slipped it into his blazer pocket. We'll see about that. Cleo turned from him, her brow furrowed in worry. Swordjoy looked Cleo over. I'm sure you have nothing to do with the letter. You've given me no reason to distrust you so far, Cleo. Cleo looked back to Swordjoy. Mr. Swordjoy? Swordjoy turned from her. I've trusted you with far more of my personal life than I give most of my close family, Cleo. If you were a threat to me, I would know. He moved his eyes to Nibirius in the driver's seat. Besides, at this point, I'd be lost without you. Cleo blinked in confusion. Sir? Swordjoy spoke to Nibirius. We need to get going all the more. And where exactly were we going? Nibirius asked. Swordjoy gave a serious glare to Cleo. Truman Manor. Of Night and Day, Chapter 20. Day. Swordjoy and Cleo's limousine pulled up to Truman's Manor in the late afternoon as the sun was setting. As they pulled up to the house, standing at the base of the large staircase, Malik was waiting for them patiently. Malik approached the car door, opening it politely. Greetings, Mr. Swordjoy, Ms. Walters. My apologies, but despite your call ahead, Mr. Truman is not available at the moment. Swordjoy growled, getting out of the car and straightening his tie. Did you inform Mr. Truman it is of the utmost importance that I speak to him immediately? Malik lent Cleo a hand as she stepped out of the limo. I did, sir, but Mr. Truman is not to be disturbed. Swordjoy turned to Malik, narrowing his eyes. Where is he, you imp? Malik's gaze hardened on Swordjoy upon seeing the scene unfold. Cleo rushed to smooth the situation over to the best of her abilities. Mr. Swordjoy has an urgent matter to bring up with Mr. Truman, Malik. Cleo interjected. I apologize for his crass comment, but Mr. Swordjoy is very distressed by some recent developments. Could you please show us to him? Malik looked to Cleo and then to Swordjoy. He nodded. You're not the one who should be apologizing, but I accept the apology nonetheless. He said, Follow me. Mr. Truman is in the atrium. Swordjoy glared at Malik as he led them up the steps. I did dash. Cleo elbowed Mr. Swordjoy's ribs. Thank you, Malik. This is greatly appreciated. We'll inform Mr. Truman that you told us to not disturb him. Much obliged, Malik said, without turning to face them. Swordjoy glared at Cleo as they walked up the steps. Cleo tapped on her tablet, Swordjoy's phone vibrating shortly thereafter. Swordjoy glanced at his phone and read the message that had just come in. If you are not nice to Malik, he won't take you to Truman. Swordjoy sneered at the phone and typed a response back to Cleo. I will not address an imp like an equal. Cleo heaved a sigh, Swordjoy's phone buzzing once more. And you wonder why I am not keen on having dinner with you? Swordjoy stopped as he read the message. Cleo walking past him, keeping up with Malik as they entered the massive foyer of Mr. Truman's manor. Swordjoy spent a brief moment looking at Cleo's white wings and her rear as she made her way past him, before snapping himself back to reality and moving to catch up with him. Why is it with every denial I want her all the more? Swordjoy thought to himself. After passing through several hallways, the trio came to a set of stained glass doors. Malik stood by the doors and smiled at the pair. If I may usher you to atrium, with a flourish. He opened the door and bowed, allowing the pair to enter. Cleo's eyes were wide as she looked at the massive floor within. It was far less a greenhouse or atrium, and more of a massive biodome. Huge palm trees dominated the canopy over their heads, as exotic plants and fruit-bearing trees, and bushes lined paths leading to the huge enclosure. Cleo looked over at one bush, in particular, confused as to the fruit she saw. What is this? Malik laughed, nagging as he smiled. Extremely rare and delicate exotic fruit. Cleo nodded. I've never even heard of it before. Soon the three came upon a massive fountain. The fountain had ivy climbing over moss and flowers covering the stone structure. At the center of the fountain stood a massive stone statue of a mighty angel, holding a globe in one hand and a tome in the other. Mr. Truman knelt before this fountain, and within its water, on a fresh pedestal, stood the heart of Lucifer. Cleo smiled. What a lovely placement for your diamond, Mr. Truman. Mr. Truman said nothing, his gray eyes fixed upon the bluish liquid, which sparkled and swirled in the sunbeams of the setting sun, striking the diamond through the glass ceiling. Malik frowned. Mr. Truman has been coming here every day, spending hours admiring his newest acquisition. Sorejoy walked to Mr. Truman. Leave us, please. We have an urgent and private matter to discuss. Malik turned to Cleo. Would you like some tea, Miss Walters? Cleo smiled. I'd be honored. You have the most divine tea. Malik beamed to Cleo. Thank you, Miss Walters. Cleo and Malik left the atrium. When the doors shut, Sorejoy turned his attention to Mr. Truman. Sir, I have to speak with you. I feared this information might leak if it went to the phone lines. Mr. Truman's eyes appeared dilated, and his breathing was slow and steady. Mr. Truman, sir? Sorejoy said, narrowing his eyes. He shook the old man, but found him still in his stupor. Great. Now the old man has gone senile. Sorejoy smiled to himself. I wonder if Truman's lack of mental clarity is an angle I can use to seize the old man's position? Sorejoy was about to call Palma before Truman spoke. Not on your life, boy. Mr. Truman's eyes blinked as he turned to Sorejoy. I'm as clear as ever, if not more so. Mr. Truman. Sorejoy frowned himself now. Did I say that out loud? Now, boy. Mr. Truman heaved a sigh. What is so damned important that you must interrupt my communion with our guardian Lucifer? Sorejoy was taken aback for a moment. Your communion with the guardian Lucifer? Sorejoy asked. I may be old, Truman wheezed, and perhaps I cannot speak as well as I could before, but I know you heard me. Sorejoy gave Truman a confused look, but that look turned to a sheepish grin. Of course, Mr. Truman, I understand. Truman slowly got up from his kneeling position, with the assistance of Sorejoy. Thank you, my boy. Sir, sorry to bother you, but I had to tell you this information in person. Sorejoy attempted to explain, but found himself cut off by Truman. The miner is returning today, yes? Truman said matter-of-factly. Sorejoy glanced at the diamond, and then back to Truman, a look of disbelief on his face. Don't doubt the guardian, boy, Truman said as he began to shamble back into the mansion. Lucifer has more sway over our lives than most. Right, Sorejoy frowned. I wanted to tell you because I have a major issue. Oh, Truman said with a sly grin on his wrinkled face. Do tell. Sorejoy steeled himself for Truman's reaction to his explanation. The miner, in this case, has mated with a Knitting dragon. She's violated our most sacred tenet, and as such must be punished. But, Sorejoy reasoned, she's a maid of a night, which would mean that she is the maid of a Knitting dragon. Harming her would cause despair to a Knitting dragon. Quite the conundrum, Truman agreed. So what is it you plan to do about this? Sorejoy frowned. That's why I came to you, sir. I wanted to know what should I do. Truman thought for a moment. So, Sorejoy felt that you had to differ with the Grand Patriarch for this issue? Sorejoy nodded. I see. Truman wheezed as they slowly meandered to the garden within the atrium. First, I have a question for you, my boy. What's that, Mr. Truman? Sorejoy asked. When I am no longer the Grand Patriarch, and you have another issue of similar gravity, whom will you turn to? Truman questioned. Sorejoy trailed off, looking down at the feeble old man. That's what I thought. Mr. Truman gave a nod. If this is beyond your judgment or your capacity, perhaps I should give this task to Mr. Hoffman. Mr. Truman fixed Sorejoy with dire gaze, as well as a nomination for Grand Patriarch. And no, Sorejoy shouted. No, sir, I can do this. I promise, Yes, Mr. Truman smiled to Sorejoy. I know. He stopped at the Naganaz fruit, picking one. Here, take this as consideration. Sorejoy looked at fruit, looking over the oddly textured flesh. What is this? Naganaz, Truman said softly. A fruit from Night. What? Sorejoy looked at the fruit in his hand. But this violates the tenet. Does it? Mr. Truman turned to Sorejoy. I took but a seed from an eaten fruit, gifted to us by the Knitting Dragons. Something gifted makes it ours, not Knight's, yes? Mr. Truman reasoned. But Sir Sorejoy tried to interject once more. It's a minutiae, a gray area. It's our judgment to determine the right and wrong of it. I am the Grand Patriarch and allow this. Truman turned to Sorejoy. What of you? What of your judgment? When I am gone, would you consider it sin? And if so, would enforce it by burning this tree? A tree that did nothing wrong. It's just a tree, Sorejoy argued. Is that all you see, Sorejoy? Only a tree? Mr. Truman's thin lips turned up in a smile. I believe we've discussed everything. Persephone runs Cerberus, Sorejoy explained. Cerberus. Mr. Truman's smile vanished. Yes, the mongrels who try to prevent my diamond from arriving. I wonder what this Persephone's goal is now. Do they covet this diamond? Or is it merely a slight against the scale? Either way, sir, I'll find them out, Sorejoy offered. No, Mr. Truman shook his head. Your concern is handling the miner. I will assign someone else within the scale to handle the situation. Who? Sorejoy asked nervously. That's none of your concern, Mr. Truman said matter-of-factly. Will we see you at Hoffman's wedding? It is at the end of the week, Mr. Truman grinned. And I expect to see you with a date. So please, contact my associate, Mimi. Sorejoy grimaced. Yes, Grand Patriarch. After all, Mr. Truman grinned. It was Mimi who allowed for Mr. Hoffman to meet his current bride. Outside of the atrium, Cleo and Malik moved to a small kitchen. I do hope you don't mind. I have some errands to run around the house, Malik informed Cleo. Cleo smiled. It's all right, I don't mind. Your superior is no longer here. You don't need to feign politeness, Malik advised. I don't look down on imps, Cleo reminded Malik. Did you think I was lying when I said that to you before? Malik walked into a butler's pantry, setting a small kettle on the stove and opening a cupboard to fetch some tea bags. I suppose it was difficult for me to believe. Malik laughed softly as he pulled a pair of teacups from another cupboard. Is it really? Cleo tapped a few items on her tablet. Why? Have you been mistreated? Not by Mr. Truman, Malik said. But normally, we aren't looked at as more than a mere working-class citizenry. It shouldn't be that way, Cleo stated. Malik took the kettle off the stove and poured water into the teacups. I wish more angels felt as you did about us imps. Me too, Cleo smiled as Malik brought her the teacup. Thank you, Malik. And polite too, Malik smiled. Odd to see a woman of privilege treating an imp with such cordiality. Cleo nearly choked on her tea. What does that mean? I've lived in enough mansions as a servant to know when a woman has had a well-to-do upbringing, Malik smiled. Yeah, Cleo sighed. That's how it was for most of my life. But even then, I was always kind to our house imp, Cuckpin. Cleo smiled as she recalled the small green-skinned imp who cared for her father's home. Cuckpin, I think I know him, Malik smiled. He worked for Julius Walters. Are you related to him, by chance? No, Cleo frowned. Not anymore. Malik looked at his teacup and took another sip, noting Cleo's reaction. He quickly decided to change the subject. Do you know how long your superior plans to be here? I'm not sure, Cleo said, sipping her tea and sighing, wishing to move the subject just as much as Malik did. This tea is excellent. Mr. Truman certainly affords himself some unique food and drink. He can afford almost anything, Malik pointed out. Almost. Cleo laughed. He's the wealthiest man on the planet. Malik nodded. And even so, there are some things money cannot buy. Like what? Cleo asked. Malik was silent for a moment, then placed his teacup on the counter. Follow me. Malik. Cleo asked, wondering where the small imp was heading as he slipped past her. Tell no one what you see, Malik requested. Why show me if I should know about it? Cleo asked, following Malik. Malik smiled. Because I trust you. Cleo laughed softly as she followed Malik up a grand staircase. Because I respect you as an equal? Malik turned to her as he reached the top of the steps. Because you respect all of us. Cleo smiled and Malik politely took her hand as she reached the top step. Well, it's the least you deserve, Cleo said. Malik nodded and walked down the hallway to a large oak door. He gave a cursory knock, coming in Master Kalen. Kalen? Cleo lifted an eyebrow out of curiosity. Yes, Mr. Truman's only son. Malik opened the door. You want to know what was that Mr. Truman could not afford? Cleo gave Malik a curious look before she turned to the doorway. Inside was a room Cleo would best describe as a hospital room. Cleo followed Malik inside as he turned the light on. He could not purchase life for his son, despite his best efforts, Malik informed. Cleo walked slowly to Kalen's bedside, looking to the tubes and wires attached to him. Are his wings? Yes, Malik smiled. White, like yours. Cleo looked him over. Her eyes were drawn to a handsome face that appeared to be sleeping soundly. Her hand automatically moved to cup his cheek. As Cleo's hand touched the skin, Kalen shifted slightly, causing Cleo to recoil in surprise. Kalen here was born with some kind of brain damage, Malik explained. Every surgery, every treatment. And he never opened his eyes, despite being physically well. Cleo nodded. I see. How old is he? Mr. Truman has dealt with this for over 30 years, Malik sighed. It's a shame. I always thought that, perhaps, if he ever woke, he would be kind to us like Mr. Truman. Sadly, despite Mr. Truman's best efforts to leave his fortune to the young boy, it will likely be challenged by his extended family. Can't use money when you're... Well, Cleo sighed. It's a shame. He's very handsome, Cleo said softly. Malik laughed. Perhaps your presence may give Master Kalen the drive to wake, a beautiful young angel to come to his rescue. Cleo laughed softly to herself, blushing. You flatter me. I speak the truth, Malik said. Come, we should not linger here. Cleo nodded. Goodbye, Kalen, she said as she walked to the door. It was nice meeting you. Shuttle Goodwill. So the guy is the one who has to ask you out? Terabitha heaved a sigh as Yuki found herself doing assorted tasks around the shuttle. Yuki laughed, usually. That's how it is on Dei. But Tom is so slow, Terabitha groaned. Isla floated past the two. He is the ground crew coordinator. He's literally on the clock every time you speak with him. He likely cannot ask you out on a date on an official line. Terabitha pouted. Well, then I'm going to get out of this ship and ask him. And risk contamination? Isla growled. No, I cannot stand being on Dei for more than a day. No offense, Yuki. Yuki laughed. No, it's fine. Oh! Hey, we're passing your moon. Yuki noticed as she looked out a small window. Slingshot time. Terabitha smiled. Then as a direct gravity-assisted swing into Dei's orbit. Yuki moved closer to the window. I don't normally see the moon from this angle. We normally always come at it from another direction to keep the solar cells operating at peak efficiency. Yuki and the crew admired the moon as they floated by. Brigitte soon floated over to her 3 crewmates. Okay, time to hit the gym, ladies. Brigitte laughed as she floated down the hallway. Yuki nodded. While she hated the idea of gym time in her old ship, she knew it was required. Otherwise, her limbs would be as useless as her wings were when she first arrived on Night. Yuki followed the other women into a large room with several machines. She watched as Brigitte floated over to a large weight station designed to emulate a sort of bench press. The bar was attached to large elastic bands, rather than weights, to provide proper resistance. Isla moved to a treadmill, strapping herself into it to keep her feet securely to the moving belt, and Terabitha moved to a leg press, which also had resistance bands versus weights for training. Yuki looked at a device which she had used a version of back on Night during her therapy, but decided this was her best place to start. There was a pair of levers which her wings would wrap around, and a few small bands attached to the levers to provide resistance. Yuki floated over the device and strapped herself in, swinging her wings behind the levers, and wincing as she moved her wings back and forth, straining her muscles as she did. After a few minutes on each machine, the women all headed out of the gym. As Yuki floated by, however, Isla stopped her. Yuki, I wanted to address this. Isla held up a large yellow feather to Yuki. Yuki frowned. Wait, where dash? It was stuck in one of the fans, Isla frowned. I've placed filters on them, but is this going to be a common problem throughout the journey? Yuki took the feather, worry on her face. No, this isn't normal. Terabitha tapped Yuki's shoulder. Well, you got some problems then. Yuki turned and saw Terabitha had a few feathers in her hands as well. She checked her wing, and to her shock, the skin underneath was not the normal shade of pale pink she was used to. The skin on her wings had turned blue. Dr. Terasuki looked over the blood work sent over from the shuttle and compared it with Yuki's previous blood work. From what Dr. Terasuki had been told, Yuki was quarantined and was wearing a flight suit over her wings to prevent her discarded feathers from getting into any additional equipment. Dr. Terasuki grumbled as she looked over the blood work. Well, this is unfortunate. She picked up her phone and made a call. Retzelina was the one to answer the call. So, is my whole crew infected? Dr. Terasuki heaved a sigh. Not unless pregnancy is contagious. Oh, for the love of the Guardians, Retzelina hissed. She'll need to be monitored. But if this launch didn't harm her pregnancy, I don't see why another would. I would recommend she exercise as much as possible. Dr. Terasuki pointed out. I'll tell Saren, Retzelina said simply. I don't want you to do so. Why is that? Dr. Terasuki asked. Because it's possible Yuki may never come back, Retzelina growled. And I don't need Saren knowing he lost a mate and a child. Yuki sat in her quarantine chamber, worrying over her head. Shedding feathers was a bad sign. In general, shedding feathers with a blue rash? Even worse. Terabitha peeked her head in. Okay, you're free to move about the cabin. Just keep those things on your wings. Yuki sighed. So no infection? Nope. Terabitha chuckled. Good, and no parasites or anything? Yuki asked, floating towards her. Define parasite, Terabitha joked. What? Yuki asked. So, apparently you're pregnant, Terabitha announced. Yuki's had spun for a moment, and she grabbed onto a handle affixed to the wall. What? Yay, Terabitha said, trying to force a smile, feeling Yuki's anxiety. How? Yuki asked, confusion on her face. Well, there's a doctor who's willing to talk to you about it. Terabitha frowned, though she did seem to be in a sour mood. Dr. Terasuki? Yuki asked. Yep. Terabitha chirped. Yep. Yuki heaved a sigh. That's her normal persuasion. Terabitha led Yuki to a communication screen where Dr. Terasuki sat next to Retzelina. If it's not my two favorite night, Yuki said sarcastically. Retzelina snarled. Preface to all this, if you do not come back tonight, I'm going to recommission the shuttle and fly there myself. Do you understand me? Yuki let out a yelp as Retzelina chastised her. I had to go back for my son. I told you this. Yuki said, and now you've endangered yourself, my crew, and my possible niece or nephew. Retzelina glared. Chairwoman. An exasperated Dr. Terasuki said, pushing her aside, if I may. Retzelina sat down next to her. Dr. Terasuki took a deep inhale through her nostrils. Yuki, I am sending a recommendation of exercises and diet that will provide you and your child the best nutrition and health possible on your spaceflight. I want to add that there's absolutely no data on hybrid night/day children, nor on embryonic development in zero gravity. So our only hope at a viable pregnancy is to follow my instructions without deviation. Yuki nodded. Of course. And what about Saren? I want to talk to him. Retzelina sneered. You can see him when you return. Until then, and until I'm certain you're coming home, I will be tending to my brother's well-being. Yuki sighed. Just please make sure he's safe, okay? Retzelina's mean face softened for a moment. I will. That much I promise. Dei. Jack sat in a dark room rubbing his shoulder as he looked at the healing wound from when he took a bullet a week or so ago. Bastards. Jack's cursed. A man with green wings and black hair approached him, bringing Jack a drink. Your buddy Joffiel got our message and wants in. We're working on some legal loopholes, but he's been pretty well buried by the bureaucrats. Yeah. Jax took the drink. No worries. I have a lead of my own, thanks Remy. Ramil gave Jax a nod as he took a seat. The others are even more committed now that a few of our brothers were killed in the last operation. Seems Persephone isn't all-knowing after all. Jack spat. Remy sighed. Last I checked, she told us to disengage, but you ignored that order. Jax turned from Remy. Seemed like a whole lot of work for nothing. I'm not saying you were wrong, but maybe this Persephone knew what they were talking about, Remy pointed out. Maybe. Jack sighed as the phone buzzed. Speak of the Guardian. Remy stood up. Orders? Jax looked at his phone and winced. Seems I got under someone's skin. Remy glanced at the message. Elijah, your recent actions have linked Cerberus to my name. This was done so prematurely and has accelerated plans that are not fully prepared. I am disappointed, to say the least. I do not mind you taking matters into your own hands. You are my guardians, my soldiers, my strength. But I do require you to speak to me first prior to your next plot. We are on the same side. Please do not work to undermine me inadvertently, should you be working to undermine me purposefully. However, be assured that you will be one of my soldiers no more. Come to the address below in 5 hours, and do so discreetly. Sincerely, Persephone. Remy chuckled. Have you ever sat in class and heard that someone is being taken to the headmaster's office? Jax glared at Remy. Very funny. Better get moving. You don't want to piss off the boss, Remy advised. Jax sighed. You mean to piss off the boss any more than I already have. Cleo laid on her bed staring at the ceiling. For some reason, she couldn't get Kalen's face out of her mind. Taryn soon peeked her head into Cleo's vision. Sue? Cleo sighed. Taryn, I appreciate the offer, but I can't even go to the wedding. Cleo sat up slowly, forcing Taryn to sit up. My boss is going to be there. He can't see me associating with you. Then he'll know what I used to do for a living. Hey, I only get married once, Pat. Taryn grinned. You're going to be a trophy wife. Taryn, you might get married a few times, Cleo pointed out. A pampered trophy wife. Taryn winked at Cleo. I mean, just look at the rock. Taryn flashed a ring with a very large diamond on her finger. You've shown it to me a few times, Cleo pointed out. But doesn't it just get prettier every time you see it? Taryn beamed. Kind of like its owner? Taryn struck a pose. Cleo couldn't help but laugh. Will you stop? Taryn gasped. Oh, my guardian. Pat can smile. The fabled expression does exist. I'll call the press. Cleo hurled a pillow at Taryn, who caught it grinning. Fine, Taryn pouted. You aren't going to come to the wedding. My heart is broken into a million pieces. Cleo sighed. Taryn, I've told you, Dash. But, Taryn began, you can come to the bachelorette party. Cleo frowned. Taryn, not Dash. If you don't at least come to the bachelorette party, then I'm not going to speak to you ever again, Taryn threatened. Cleo frowned, feeling the pit of her stomach drop. Taryn, there's a whole lot of stuff going on at work, and I'm not sure I should be out and about, okay? I think someone is looking for me. You think that someone trying to hurt you is going to get past Mimi and Tiberius? Taryn said, cocking a hip. Not to mention, she unfurled her red wings. Me? Cleo sighed. These are dangerous guys, Taryn. They attacked my boss and me the other day. Then one of them left a note in his limo for me. She looked up at Taryn. I'm scared. Taryn was about to say something, but spotted something outside the window. Hey, Pat, your boss has red hair, right? Yeah, why? Cleo said as she turned and her eyes went wide as she spotted Sorjoy walking toward the house. She ducked down under the window, out of sight. What in oblivion is my boss doing here? Looking for arm candy? Taryn asked. Cleo glared at her. He is not that kind of rich bastard. Taryn grinned. Jealous? Jealous. Cleo shouted, covering her mouth. Taryn sank down with Cleo. Pat, do you have the hots for your boss? Cleo narrowed her eyes. No, I do not, Cleo hissed. Then why are you so bent out of shape at the idea that he's coming to Mimi for the big wedding tomorrow? Taryn asked. Sorjoy is not like that. Cleo peeked up over the windowsill and ducked back down upon seeing him at the door. Oh, Guardian, what if you just found out where I live? Taryn shrugged. I could pull the whole sexy chick, Wrong house routine. Mimi soon passed the door, wearing a revealing black dress that shimmered as she walked. The dress was backless and strapless, hugging her bust tightly while revealing her expansive cleavage. Mimi wore expensive black heels with bright blue soles and a long obsidian cigarette holder in her hand. Her hair was clearly styled for a night on the town, her makeup smart to match. Mimi stopped at the doorway, giving Cleo and Taryn a strange look. "What are you two doing?" Taryn turned to Mimi, mock gasping. "There's a mon..." Mimi shook her head, giving the pair a stern look. "Both of you just sit down and shut up." Cleo frowned. "Mimi, that's my boss." "I know." Mimi rolled her eyes, her hand on the doorknob. "He has an appointment. By the way, I expect to see you both at the club later, asterisk. Asterisk, and she shut the door to their room firmly. "An appointment?" Cleo asked softly. Taryn smiled. "Looks like you were wrong about him." Cleo slid to the floor, a defeated look on her face. "That's jealousy. I can see it," Taryn teased. "I'm not jealous," Cleo said as she leaned against the wall. "Just disappointed." Mimi opened the door, a wide smile on her face. "Mr. Sorejoy, welcome to my home." "Eric Sorejoy." Sorejoy gave a polite bow. "A pleasure to meet you, Madam Mimi." "Oh, no. Mimi shook her head. "Just call me Mimi. Drop that madam bullshit right now, or you go home empty-handed." Sorejoy nodded. "My sincerest apologies. This isn't normally something I find myself doing." "You're new." "Fair enough," Mimi said. "Let's get going then." Sorejoy stepped aside and allowed Mimi to walk towards his limousine, his eyes lingering on her hips as she passed him by. Nabirius stood by the passenger door, holding the door open for the pair. Nabirius nodded. "Good evening, Mississippi." "Good evening, sir." Mimi smiled at Nabirius as she climbed into the limousine. Sorejoy climbed in, motioning to the bar. "Feel free to help yourself to anything." Mimi smiled. "Thank you." Looked at the bar with a little interest. "We have much to discuss, and that's best done with a clear head," she explained, pulling out a small tablet. Sorejoy cleared his throat. "So, how does this work? You come with me to the event, or..." "Me?" Mimi chuckled. "Oh, you're green. No, my dear boy, I'm the one who selects your match." "Sorry, I've never done this before," Sorejoy defended. Mimi grinned to Sorejoy. "Oh, I get that question all the time. I assure you." Sorejoy sighed. "I'm honestly not looking for more than a date for the evening." Sorejoy furrowed his brow as he looked away from Mimi. "Do you have a wife, Mr. Sorejoy?" Mimi asked politely. "No." "Soreji said," holding back his agitation at the question, "if I had a wife, I wouldn't need your services." Mimi laughed. "What's so funny?" Sorejoy asked, confused by her outburst. "Oh, nothing, just the number of married men I have as clients probably outweighs the bachelors. Is all." Mimi smiled. "Not married. That's good, but you act as apprehensive as a married man." "I am interested in someone," Sorejoy said, "but she's out of my reach." Mimi smiled. "Well, that's my specialty, getting you exactly what you desire. I feel rather cheap. Purchasing company for the evening," Sorejoy explained. Mimi narrowed her eyes on Sorejoy. "Mr. Sorejoy, all of my girls do this job willingly, and we are professionals in every respect of the word, but not a damn one of us is cheap." Sorejoy nodded. "My apologies. I suppose I should rephrase. It feels like I'm cheating, using my money to buy someone's affection. Eric." Mimi forced a smile. "If that's not what money is for, then I don't know how else you spend it." Sorejoy nodded. "Now, what qualities do you look for in a partner? Long term or short doesn't matter," Mimi stated. "I don't want some vapid airhead," Sorejoy began. "That's the first disqualifier. Let's stick with what you do want, yes?" Mimi probed. "Someone who can keep up in conversation, who is beautiful and refined," Sorejoy explained. "Any hair, skin, feather, or eye color preferences?" Mimi asked. "White," Sorejoy mumbled, trailing off. "Mr. Sorejoy?" Mimi asked, pretending not to hear Sorejoy. "Light hair, bright eyes." Sorejoy heaved a sigh. "Stunningly beautiful will be a plus. No fake wing colors." She has elegance and poise. That's the sort of woman I'm looking for, Sorjoy explained. Mimi gave a nod. Shame, a few months ago I'd have a different pick for you, but I know exactly who you're looking for. Do you now? Sorjoy said, facing Mimi. Oh, yes. Mimi said as the limousine came to a stop. Let's go so you can meet her. Nibirius opened the door, and Sorjoy saw himself outside of the club with a rather long line at the door. Sorjoy walked out and looked at the long line of would-be club-goers. Mimi slipped out, getting a hand from Nibirius. Would you be a dear and walk me in, darling? She said to Sorjoy. Sorjoy gave a nod, taking her arm in his as they approached the bouncer. Without asking for names, the bouncer let the pair in. The large, dark-skinned man smiled to Mimi. Miss Mimi. Evening, Troy. Mimi smiled. See you later, babe. There was some minor complaining from the line as Mimi escorted Sorjoy inside. Sorjoy found himself surrounded by loud music and even louder lights. Mimi pulled out her phone and texted something quickly before placing it in her clutch. Come along, Mimi shouted, pulling Sorjoy after her. Soon the pair found themselves sitting in a much quieter room, the thunder of the bass outside muted heavily by the soundproofing inside. Mimi led Sorjoy to a table, sitting him down and smiling to him. Comfortable? No, Sorjoy stated. I'm extremely uncomfortable with this entire situation. Mimi smiled. Perfectly normal, darling. Soon a woman with tan skin and light green eyes walked into the room. Her hair was a chestnut brown, her wings a slightly lighter tone, almost blonde comparatively. Sorjoy's expression changed as he saw the lovely woman. She wore a sparkling silver dress that stopped at her mid-thigh and sky-high heels. Her makeup was immaculate and sparkled in the dark lights of the room. Obviously for the wedding. Should we dress more appropriately? Mimi pointed out. But Mr. Sorjoy, meet Jasmine. Jasmine gave a slight nod. Mr. Sorjoy. It would be Eric, if we'd be together tomorrow, Sorjoy corrected. I was just being polite, sir, Jasmine said sternly. Well, she's no ditz, that's good, Sorjoy thought to himself. Jasmine here's the perfect woman for your evening, Mr. Sorjoy. She's a well-rounded young woman, perfectly capable of chatting up the other women of your social circles while keeping your image perfectly intact, Mimi boasted. You do say perfect a lot, Sorjoy pointed out. Because I only deal in perfection, Mr. Sorjoy, Mimi beamed. Sorjoy gave a nod. What's your opinion on regulation to lumen's core value? Jasmine smiled. While I believed in the mineral standard many years ago, the current methodology of weighing the lumen off of the GDP of the country is a much more effective and accurate measure of its value as effective currency. Sorjoy gave her a nod. Softball economics question, but she's versed enough to get herself through an evening. Mimi turned to Jasmine. Well, Jasmine, what do you think? Sorjoy lifted an eyebrow. What does she think? Jasmine smiled. I think we would have a lovely evening, and whatever happens thereafter would be up to Mr. Sorjoy. I'll let you two get along for a few minutes, Mimi grinned. Afterward, Mr. Sorjoy, you can see yourself out or spend more time with Jasmine, but I will warn, that does cost extra. Sorjoy moved over in his seat as Jasmine sat down next to him while reaching into his jacket pocket and producing a black credit card. Thank you, Miss Mimi. Always happy to help. Mimi took the card from Sorjoy and left the small VIP area. Her demeanor shifted quickly as she glanced at her watch, her face shifting to a sneer as she made her way through the club and toward the rear exit. The beautifully elegant Angel walked to the back alleyway and lit up her cigarette in her obsidian cigarette holder, inhaling softly. She then flicked the cigarette twice and gave 3 taps on the wall. Moving from the darkness was Jax, wearing a respirator designed to appear as a dog mask. Was it you who sent the message? Jax asked. Mimi narrowed her eyes on Jax. You shouldn't be the one to whine about sending messages, she hissed, storming up to Jax, narrowing her blazing green eyes on him. Despite being a good deal smaller than him, do you have any idea how badly you fucked up? Jax glared back at her, his eyes visible behind the mask. Hey, the girl is close to the CO. I thought we could entice her to join us. Well, I don't think you're completely off base, Mimi chastised. Your little note typist phone is Cerberus. That Jax has fucked us up royally. Well, you haven't told me about the plan. Jax defended. I was just trying to help out. Persephone makes the plans. Mimi narrowed her green eyes on him. Not you? Now, thanks to you, Persephone has a lot more work to do. Mimi shouted. I'm sorry, but if you clued me in Dash, Jax was cut off. That's all you had to ask for, Jax. I'm not telling you to fuck off, trust me. Mimi took a drag of her cigarette. But I am telling you, call Persephone before you do something, and if you want more information, the beautiful little angel poked Jax's chest. Then ask Persephone for more information. Mimi grinned. Persephone is happy to give you what you need, darling. Jax narrowed his eyes. What if I don't like your plan, huh? What if I just want to take the whole Cerberus group and do my own thing? Wreck some shit up, burn some buildings down? Huh? So, you're saying Cerberus would disobey Persephone? Mimi challenged with an innocent-looking grin. Yeah, maybe we will. Jaw puffed up his chest, looking down on Mimi. What are you going to do about it? You're 168 centimeters in 10 centimeters heels. Mimi exhaled her cigarette smoke and smiled. What would I do? She snapped her fingers with her free hand. Jax watched as a black figure landed next to Mimi from somewhere above them. Naberius had landed, wearing his street clothing, a heavy coat, and a bright chrome respirator, which was fashioned to look like a skull with large menacing teeth and horns. She, Naberius rumbled, wouldn't do shit, but for me, I'd tear your arms off and beat you with them. Naberius marched up to Jax, chest bumping him, and causing Jax to stagger back. Fly, boy. Jax nearly fell over and yelped as he got his bearings. F fine, but keep me in the loop from now on. The same to you, Mimi smiled. Fly, boy. Jax turned and left the alleyway quickly. Why, Fly, boy was my thing. Naberius pointed out. Yes, well, Mimi grinned. I rather liked it. Naberius laughed and took to the air, while Mimi walked back into the club. There at the bar, she spotted Cleo and Taryn. Taryn waved Mimi over. Mimi, Pat, and I are drinking. I've bought so many shots. She began a half dance over to Mimi. Shots, 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 shotty shots. Cleo took a shot and grumbled a bit to herself. Clearly disliking the loud music, Mimi happily took a shot from Taryn and gulped it down, then sat next to Cleo. Everything okay? Cleo asked. Perfectly fine, love. Nothing to worry your pretty little head about. Mimi smiled. Cleo heaved a sigh. Did Sorejoy pick someone? He didn't, right? Mimi grinned. Jasmine. Jasmine. Cleo huffed. Really? Mimi grinned. Oh, you have a problem with that? She's all front. She just knows the answers to like a couple of conversation starters, and that's it. Cleo hissed. Oh, I know. Mimi smiled. If you had still been one of my girls, I have sent you in a heartbeat. Cleo blushed. What? I would have picked you for Sorejoy, Mimi said as another drink slid her way from Taryn. Taryn soon slipped between the pair of Mimi and Cleo. Okay, now fun time. Mimi smiled. Yes, you've got a big day tomorrow. Wedding, Taryn shouted, taking another shot and shouting enthusiastically. Cleo frowned, but Mimi soon leaned over to her, whispering into her ear. This is Taryn's bachelorette party, not your pity party. Pick yourself up, understand me? Mimi hissed. Cleo nodded and forced a smile, taking a shot. Oh! Taryn grinned wide, selfie, and pulled Mimi and Cleo close to her, pulling out her phone and grinning wide. Say matrimony. Cleo and Mimi were taken off guard by the time Taryn had taken the photo. As the night went on, Mimi's words rang in Cleo's head, even when they had gotten home, drunk and exhausted. That's when Cleo's phone rang, and she reached for it groggily. The time showed it was very late, close to 1 a.m. She looked at the name on the phone, confused as the phone showed it was Sorejoy, Eric. Cleo picked up the phone. Mr. Sorejoy? Cleo, Sorejoy said, pausing for a moment. I have a wedding to go to tomorrow. I'm aware, Mr. Sorejoy. Cleo rubbed her temple. It's why your day is ending at 3 p.m. tomorrow instead of your usual 7 p.m. I want you to go with me, Sorejoy said. Excuse dash, Cleo said before Sorejoy cut her off. Sorejoy spoke with authority as my date.